All right. Let's see here. Everything should be up and running smoothly here. Yo, Genesis, allow me, tell me if the volume is working smoothly. If y'all can hear me loud and clear, I'll appreciate that. Um, so yeah, I mean, I haven't been on here and done a stream, and man, it's got to be. It's been a while, man. It's probably been what, like a month and a half since I've been on, and it's not like I'm, deliberately, trying to, not do a live stream. There's a lot of shit going on right now. So that's what, why I have to reschedule some streams, right? Because I see people ask me, yo, man, when's the next stream? When's the next stream? I saw you had one set up for, say, the 15th, for example, and then it was postponed. I was like, yeah, sorry about that. But, sometimes things come up where you have to reschedule things sometimes. So my apology. Been waiting, wondering where I am. Just a lot of shit going on right now. Like say for instance, like like what, maybe 2 3 weeks ago we had that huge snowstorm over here, which we're still dealing with the effects of that. Snow's still on the streets where I'm at. And for me to be able to do my shows, right, I stream from a vehicle, which I have to have a certain spot in order to do it, right? So I haven't been able to do that for a while. Like say for example, yesterday I attempted to do a live stream, but the vehicle was 200 feet away from where I need it to be. I was like, okay, well, hopefully the connection can stretch to that area where I need it. And of course it didn't. So I was like, oh, well, I guess I gotta, you know, try again tomorrow. And here we are. Fortunately it worked out. Eddie from Pittsburgh said, "What's up, ETT? Long time no see." Yeah, how you doing, Eddie? Hope you're doing well, my friend. I said, "Yeah, the volume is good and clear." Okay, cool. So yeah, you know, um, a lot of shit going on, man. Um, Now I have seen that this guy Jay, he's going off lately, right? Jay's going off. It seems, man. It seems like every other, week at this point, the guy's like changing up what he believes and teaches. Well, my, personal advice for you, my friend, um, would be, if you're unsure about what you believe and teach, perhaps you should take a break from YouTube for like, say, 5 6 months until you, figure that out. That would just be my advice for you. And any other person out there who's, unsure about what they believe and teach, hey, take some time off, from doing your, content or whatever, and, figure it out, right? Figure out what you, believe and teach. You're not getting anywhere and not helping anybody by, changing up what you believe like every other week. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't get anywhere, man. And not to put myself on any type of pedestal or nothing, but I've been consistently saying the same doctrine for over 10 years now on YouTube, right? I started my YouTube channel. Well, I've been in the truth for like 11 and a half years, almost 12 years I've been in the truth, right? So, as far as YouTube, I started my YouTube back in 2016, right? So this year, it's 10 years that I've, been consistently posting content. Of course, I lost, a handful of channels here and there for, these bullshit guideline restrictions, which, are totally biased, and unfair, of course. But but yeah, I've been consistently year after year after year after year coming up here having these debates and teachings and lessons saying the exact same message for 10 years on this platform without changing what I stand upon. You know what I'm saying? So, when I see these guys out here, like Jay's just a good example, but there's, countless other people that are doing what he's doing, changing up what they believe. Oh, one week it's this thing, another week it's now this other new thing. I mean, come on, man. If you guys don't know what you believe, well, you shouldn't be teaching anybody on the internet. That's just some word of advice. And that goes for any person out there, of any type of, faith or religion. If you don't know what it is that you believe, well, then how can you stand up and claim to be a leader to lead people? Like, say, for instance, like Jay's over there got a channel of like 20,000, and he's changing up what he's saying, right? Changing up the doctrine like every other week. Like say, for instance, this will get really, really sad and pathetic, man. Like the dudes over there now, the whole new doctrine is well, I got to use code language here because YouTube don't like certain words. But Adolf, right? The commander, leader from World War II. You can connect all the dots. Now he's saying, oh, well, he was actually like, a pretty cool guy. He was actually, just misunderstood, right? He was just like misunderstood. He was actually, a pretty cool guy. It's like, well, bro, what the hell are you talking about, man? You know what I'm saying? It's like, seriously, like, this is where your mind's at right now. I mean, think about this. We're literally on the verge of World War III. We're living through a Great Depression. The dollar is losing its value as the days tick by. There's so much shit going on right now that's worthy of talking about, and you want to sit there and debate if Adolf was actually like some type of like hero. I mean, come on, man. This is just pathetic. This is dumb. I'm just gonna call it what it is, man. Yeah, everybody is entitled to their own beliefs and views, right? So, if the guy wants to sit there and believe that and teach that, hey, then that's your choice. You can do that. If you want to believe that and teach that, then go ahead. But I'm just warning you that you're leading people down a bad path, man. And you need to correct that. Like, think about how dumb that is. How can you claim, which again, Jay claims to represent Christ, right? If you ask Jay, do you teach that Christ is the Messiah that you had to believe upon for forgiveness of sin? Oh, yeah, I believe that and teach that. Okay, good. But then how can you say, on the other hand, that you also take great inspiration from a man responsible for the death of millions of people? Like, whatever happened to, like, literally the first 10 commandments in the Bible, right? In Exodus, the 20th chapter. Now, you should be familiar with them if you read the Bible. It might ring a bell that one of those commandments is that thou shalt not kill. Now, really, it's saying thou shalt not murder, is what it's talking about. But the point is, how can you sit there and defend somebody that's responsible for, the senseless death of millions of people, and claim that he's like some type of like good inspirational person? I mean, that's just dumb. You know what I'm saying? That's just totally dumb to believe. And it's something brand new that he just like randomly came up with like 1 month ago. I mean, seriously, man. 3 months ago you weren't talking about this bullshit. You just came up with this like last month. We're now like, forming some type of like deep doctrine around it for whatever reason. You know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous. Excuse the background noise. So I seen the one brother, Lion of Judah, which is down here in the chat. Shalom to that brother. But I saw that he was doing a live stream where he had another brother was on there. I believe it was Drew, which he's a cool guy. But they were on there, having a chat, and I listened to the stream, was listening, and I saw Jay went in the comment section, like on the live chat, was typing away. Oh, well, UTT won't let me up to talk. Don't want to talk, or running. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? First of all, is it true or false that literally like 2 months ago, if even less, I hosted like multiple open panel live streams where you called in and you're just sitting there being quiet for like an hour on end, and then I ask, do you want to add anything into the discussion? You're like, oh no, I'm just listening. I'm just listening. Like I'm in the freezer right now, right? I'm at the job or whatever. It's like, oh, okay, cool. But hey, if you got something to say, feel free to chime in. Like, that's what I say to my guest on here when they, might be listening for a while, maybe not talking a lot. I'll say, okay, feel free to listen, but if you got something to say, feel free to add to the discussion. The same thing with Jay, right? So I don't see how you can sit there and say, oh, well, you don't want to talk to me, won't let me up to talk. It's like, I don't know what you're talking about, man, because you were literally on my open panel for an hour, sitting there not talking at all. I asked you got anything to add to the discussion. It's like, oh, I'm just listening. It's like, okay, cool. But don't sit there and disrespect me like that and say that I don't let you up to have a conversation, because that's just not true. Now, another thing is not every live stream that people do is an open invitation for everybody to join and talk, right? Sometimes people do live streams where they intend to sit on the panel and talk to their audience, just like how I'm doing here, right? Some channels are big into the open panel, some are just into, I guess, what would you call it, like a monologue or something like that, right? Where I'm, sitting here talking, you're sitting there listening, and if you have a question or a comment, then hey, you can feel free, and ask that. Right? And Jay was like, well, it says, Q&A, right? So why can't, people come up? It's like, well, Q&A is not the same thing as as an open panel, right? For anybody that's been on YouTube for a number of years, you should know that. The Q&A, if you didn't know what that means, it means questions and answers. So people can either, ask questions to the creator on the live chat, and the creator will respond to those questions, just like how I would do here. Say someone asks me a question in the chat, I'll say, okay, well, this is what I think about it. Here's my response. And, keep it moving to the next question. That's what a Q&A is. A Q&A is not a link in the chat for everybody to call up and have an open discussion about whatever the topic of their choice is. That's what an open panel is, right? Like, we should know the difference between these terms, man. Okay, let me check the comments. Let's see what's going on. He said, yo, how is it going, ETT? Yeah, I'm doing, I mean, shit, I could be doing better, but I'm alive, right? I'm here, right? You know what I'm saying? But yeah, Dave Freak, it's been a long time, man. I haven't seen you around here in a pretty long time, man. So glad to see that Dave Freak actually stopped by. That's a rare occurrence. But hopefully you're doing well. Okay. Hopefully you're doing well. Jared Genesis said Jay is talking about worshiping Odin as well, if you didn't know. Yeah, I didn't know about that. I didn't hear about that. Now, I'm not gonna slander him because I don't know if that's true or false. I'd have to ask him. But if that is true, right, if that is found to be true, then that would be sin right there, right? Once again, going back to the Ten Commandments, it literally says, "Thou shalt not have any other gods before me." Well, Odin, that's like some type of like mythology, right? Of some culture. So that would be a false idol. That would be like a pagan deity. So you can't give reverence and respect or worship to these false idols and still claim that you follow the God of the Bible. Like, sorry, but you can't do that. Just like some Christians out here, they'll say, oh, I believe in Jesus, right? I believe in God. But then if you look at the way they live in complete contradiction to what God says. Like, say, for instance, right? Like, I know plenty of Christians out there who are actively going out and you like getting new tattoos on their body, even getting Jesus tattoos, believe that or not. And you try to tell them, well, even though you might have good intentions, right? Even though you might have good intentions with getting like these religious tattoos on your body, like, John 3:16 or a cross or or Jesus, right? That white image, right? That fake Jesus picture. And even though you might have good intentions, that's still sin, right? That's still wrong. Like, say for example, like what is that? Leviticus 19:27. It says that you're not supposed to make any markings upon the flesh, right? Not supposed to make any printings or markings upon the flesh. So again, a tattoo is both a printing and a marking upon your flesh, something that we're not supposed to be doing. So that's just a good example of how some people out there who do claim to, follow the Bible or believe in Christ, they're living in sin. And again, sometimes it might have good intentions, but that doesn't make it right. Like, I'll give you another example, right? I'll give you another example of like a Christian community having good intentions but still committing a sin. Like, there's food banks out here that are ran by some of these like local churches in the area. But then if you go to the food bank that they're running out of the back of the church, right out of the church's, back house or kitchen or whatever. And you open up the damn freezer and they got pork, shrimp, even lobster I've seen, venison, and so on and so forth. Oh, hell, bacon's in there, and a whole lot of other shit's in there too, right? And they're giving that out to the community. And again, don't get me wrong, they have good intentions with helping the needy, that's true, but you guys are still committing sin by handing out these unlawful meats, something that God takes great offense towards. Hey, all you got to do is read, was that Isaiah 45, or excuse me, not 45, 66, and verse 15 to 17, right? It says that the Lord's going to come with his chariots to bring vengeance upon the people with fire. And those that be found eating the swine and the mouse, they're going to be consumed together. Did he catch that? Those are unclean meats, right? So when Christ comes back, he's going to judge those eating unclean meats, among other sins. So yeah, even though they might have good intentions with what they're doing, they're still promoting sin, right? They're still, doing something that's in sin. It, it really is just pathetic and just sad to me on some bases out here, man. Like with Jay's a good example. Like, I don't know how you can sit there and claim that you represent Christ and God, right? The God of the Bible, but yet you're going to sit there and defend and look up to somebody who's literally a mass murderer responsible for the death of millions of people. And then he'll try to argue and say, like I saw he said earlier, well, it wasn't really what they're saying. Like, they're exaggerating the numbers. Like, oh, maybe they're saying like 11 million, but, it's more so likely like maybe half of that. And then I respond, right? I completely shut him down with my response. And I say, you know what? Let's say, our hypothetical argument, even if the Germans in World War II, even if they only killed 1 million people, that's still mass murder. So, the weird mustache guy, again, I gotta watch the words I use because you two don't like certain words. But even if he only was responsible for the death of 1 million people, or even 500,000, that still doesn't change the fact that he's a mass murderer and responsible for the death of innocent men, women, and children. So again, regardless if it's, 11 million, 50 million, 5 million, or 1 million, that doesn't change the fact that he's a mass murderer who ordered the the mass deletion, to watch the words I use, of large groups of numbers of people. Like, how do you get around this? Let me even give you one more spiritual uppercut here. The first murder that ever happened on Earth was when Cain slew his brother Abel, right? So did God view Cain as a murderer when he slew his brother? Like, again, literally, he just killed one person, right? But God viewed that as murder. He viewed that as evil, as sin. Excuse background noise. But if God considered that to be sin, when he just unalived one guy, well, how much more for, a whole, um, a country that's being led by somebody who's responsible for even just say 500,000 or a million deletions. You know what I'm saying? Like what logic are you using here to defend this evil man? You know what I'm saying? And then he'll try to say, well, Western media is lying about his like motives and intentions. It's like, I don't give a shit what his motives and intentions are. That doesn't change the fact that he's responsible for the deaths of millions of people. Like what logic is that? Like let me flip this on you, Mr. J. Would you agree that Vladimir Putin is responsible for the death of, let's just say, a million people with his war in Ukraine over the last, well, literally in 4 days is going to be exactly 4 years now that the war has been raging on with no end in sight, right? Remember, tens of millions, maybe even at this point, 100 million people, if not more, have been displaced due to this conflict, and had to migrate to other nations, Dodge, joining the army, um, relocate their families and so on and so forth due to Putin's war on Ukraine. But the question I have for you is, would you agree that Putin is responsible for ordering the invasion of Ukraine, therefore resulting in the death of, say, a million people? And if you agree that he is responsible for it, well, by what logic can you say that Adolf is not responsible for what his troops did under his command? I mean, that right there, that's a KO. That's a mic drop right there. And don't get me wrong, right? I don't at all hate Jay at all. I consider Jay to be a friend. But with that being said, he's definitely not a very good teacher. In fact, I would argue that he shouldn't have the title of a teacher at all at this point. That's what I would say. You cannot sit there and defend such evil and claim that you represent Christ. You can't do that, man. Like, say for instance, like this knucklehead, Perry Green. Oh, whatever. Jesus paid for everything. You can live however the hell you want. You can smoke, 50 cartons of cigarettes a week. You can, lay with your neighbors' wives. You can, do all this evil as long as you don't believe it's evil. Oh, it's all perfectly fine. God doesn't have a problem with it. I mean, that's just not true, man. Now, quick background story for those of you who don't know the background story between myself and Jay. We're going back, say, roughly 7 years here, back to like 2019. Um, my buddy Ridge and Jay, they were talking. And at first, I didn't really like Jay, so we were doing some videos back and forth, about bad mouthing one another. Well, not really nothing, severe or whatever. Just, didn't really like each other, right? So, long story short, we end up, talking, right, due to the fact that we both know Ridge and consider him to be a close friend. So, over the course of some time, right, moving into, 2020, 2021, we actually became friends, talked, weekly, did streams together. Um, and I was still today would consider Jay to be a friend, right? Again, I never said that I hated Jay or he's not a friend, or I didn't say that. But all I'm doing is sitting up here and rebuking the nonsense that he's saying. And this is out of love here, right? Like the scriptures say, rebuke out of love. And that's what I'm doing, standing up here in front of an audience of subscribers, both of his and mine, and crawling out the nonsense he's saying. So that's not hatred. That's not me disliking him. That's just me pointing out the facts. And I hope that he, gets his act together and turns from what he's saying. That's honestly what I hope for him. Because, it doesn't feel good, man, to have to sit here and, criticize or quote unquote expose a person you've considered to be friends for, like 7 years, right? 6, 7 years, but it's something that has to be done. We can't show respect of persons, man. And it goes for anybody. I can't show respect to persons to Ridge, to, Mina Shireg, to, Jamie Russell, to Jay Gee, so on and so forth. And that's just what it is. So I'll reiterate a statement I said earlier about, right now we're living on the verge of a third world war. We're living in a Great Depression. We're living in basically the greatest financial collapse in the history of the world right now. And instead of talking about all these important things, I mean, shit, the MOTB, Revelation 13:16, literally could happen like next month at this point. We're so damn close to these things happening, man. And you guys just want, well, not you guys watching, but Jay wants to sit there and debate about if Adolf was actually like a true righteous man, or, he's being misrepresented. I mean, come on, man. You need to get your priorities in order, man. You know what I'm saying? This is such dumb shit to be sitting here and debating about. And for the record, go back to what I said earlier, I never turned down a discussion with Jay about these subjects. In fact, before I even did this stream, I sent him a message and said, hey, man, I'm going live. If you're free, feel free to join. I'll drop a link for you. If you can't make it today, then we can have a discussion on another live stream. That is fine. Because he might be working, might be busy. So, I'll respect his circumstance there. That's fine. But yeah, I've never turned down a conversation about these subjects. Shit, I mean, I don't turn down any debate or discussion with anybody about any subject matter. And if someone says otherwise, well, name me somebody. Name me a person or topic that I've turned down having a discussion or a debate about. I mean, shit, I ain't running from no one. I got people running from me. Like, look at this knucklehead Drake, right? AKA Dreadlord. Or as I call him, Damn Devil Demon Dreadlord, right? 5 D's in a row. 5 D's in a row. Damn Devil Demon Dreadlord, right? AKA the Southern Israelite. I mean, that knucklehead was running from me literally for 3 years. And then I finally, cornered him when I called him live, and, he had to let me up. We actually had a good conversation. We actually had a really good conversation. I think it was like, what, 3 hours long, or roughly? So, he did all this running, all this, running like a little kid for like 3 damn years. And then when I finally corner him to have a discussion, it actually went decently well, right? Very respectable on both sides. And it just shows, a lot of people are just scared and running for no damn reason at all. Oh, shit, something that I should mention here, something that should be mentioned. Let me, out of respect, let me even grab my other device here to look up the name of this individual, just so I don't butcher his name. But speaking of people running from stream discussions for whatever dumb reason, there was a knucklehead that left a comment, a whole plethora of comments the other day on my video. This guy's name is Mike Walsh. Mike Walsh, 1402. Mike Walsh, 1402 is the name of this individual. And he was trying to say, oh, well, that great city, Babylon, that's actually Mecca in Saudi Arabia. Babylon, Mecca, man. So me and him went back and forth a couple of comments and shit. I even did a damn response video to him. But you know why I did the response video? Because I invited him. I said, okay, look, man, how about, since we both disagree on the subject, instead of sending 50 damn comments back and forth, wasting your time and my time, Why don't I just invite you to join me on a live stream and we can have a friendly, respectable conversation about why we view the topic differently? Knucklehead's like, oh, well, I don't want to do that. Well, I don't want to join the live stream, but I know you're wrong, though. Like, come on, man. Why are you running from having a conversation? You know what I'm saying? I don't get why people are so quick, to run their damn mouth in these comment sections or comment threads. But then when that link drops, people are, chicken shit coward and don't want to join and have a conversation. Like shit, I gotta give credit to Neo, right? A friend of Nick, right? Signs and Wonders. Neo is 14, well, probably 15 years old now. But he don't have any problem coming up on a live stream and having a debate or conversation about the Bible. I've debated him about does God create good and evil? Is Mary, sinless, right? Does she have, sinless perfection? Um, Debated about probably salvation as well, about, if Satan is under God's authority or if he's, like running free, doing whatever the hell he pleases in the world. And he was actually very respectable, very, very respectable. You know what I'm saying? So I just find that funny to me how he is able to have a respectful discussion about these topics of disagreement. But then these dudes on there, in their late 30s or, late 20s, act like, little ass kids and don't want to even engage in a conversation. And if they do come up, more often than not, they have to throw a lot of, slander and just, endless babblings and bullshit and whatever. It's ridiculous. It really is just ridiculous, man. Okay, so I will check the comments here because I see there's a long thread of comments, so I do apologize. I've been a little long-winded, but hey, it's needed because, I haven't been on here to be able to speak in like a month and a half. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of shit that I got to say with little time. This individual said, ETT, I thought you were AP as I walked by your live. I'm not sure who AP is. Unless you mean like Jay. Um, let's see. Judah said he believes the Aryans are Israelites because Germans got conquered in World War II when everybody gets conquered, but the Dutch were conquering people over here. To say anything else? Yeah, well, I mean, I don't get his reasoning behind that because, well, first of all, most countries on Earth, and by the way, that's a fun question for him. Does he even know how many countries exist on Earth? Because most people don't know. If you didn't know, there's 197 countries that exist on Earth today. So I would argue that probably like what 70% of those countries, if not more, throughout their history have been invaded and conquered by other people, if not numerous times. So I mean, like, what point does he have to say, oh, well, this certain group of people, might have been, colonized or, invaded over the course of time? It's like, okay, maybe that happened, but like, what does that prove exactly? Because, like, most countries on Earth, got invaded by the enemies, right? By their enemies, or colonized, right? Or enslaved, or, it's so much shit that I don't even know what to say at this point, man. It's just really just some dumb nonsense. Just total dumb nonsense. And that's what I have to say to that, right? It's just totally dumb. Jared actually made a really good point. Jared Genesis said, Jay's been trolling in the Discord server too. And it's like, how do you expect us to take what you're saying seriously if you're trying to troll? Yeah, but really good point. I mean, why would, you take a troll serious. You know what I'm saying? And this dude admits to having, like fake troll accounts that he like, goes after like other creators, on YouTube, to mess with them and troll them. I mean, hey, look, if you do that in your free time, then you do that in your free time. But you shouldn't be doing that and mixing that with, the truth, right? Or with the word of God. Like that's not funny to be doing, man. Right? Like shit, if you want to go troll people on like Xbox Live, or, on Call of Duty or, GTA 5 or whatever. If you want to do that, and you go do that, man, if you find that amusing. But you shouldn't be doing that with the word of God, though, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, you shouldn't be doing that with these very important things. Like, it's not a laughing matter, for lack of better terms. Got knucklehead Jill. Jill said, here for me a second, said depression? World War III? ETT's been watching CNN again. Try to share it on screen. Okay, there we go. What's this knucklehead? Oh, Jill. Well, Jill, are those things not true? Right? Is it not true that we're in a depression right now? I mean, look around you, man. What, like, let me give you an example to prove that we're in a complete collapse, right? Complete depression. Like, I just had to stop at McDonald's earlier today to pick up, literally a few items. And then before someone says, "Well, why are you eating McDonald's?" Well, I actually haven't had McDonald's in literally like probably like 2 years since I've even stepped foot in one, or something like that, something like that. Um, but I had to get one of them Shamrock shakes, right? Because I always enjoyed getting one of them when they come out, which only happens like what, once a year. So I was like, okay, well, I got to go get two of those. Uh, you know, two medium fries, like a coffee on the side, right? So explain to me how the hell that comes out to like literally $28 for those what 4 or 5 items? Like how the hell does that make any damn sense? And meanwhile, people out here are being paid $8 an hour, $10 an hour. Meanwhile, a Happy Meal is $8.50. Oh, but according to Jill, well, nothing's going on, man. Trump is like a savior, right? Trump is like a savior to America and mankind, sent by God to save everybody. you know, it's really hilarious, man. It's really hilarious. These are some of the, knuckleheads that, going around ranting and, spreading lies on the internet. Like, again, Jill's a really gullible and ignorant guy. All the government of America had to do to trick Jill to think that he's like so free and, America's so amazing and praise Trump. All they had to do for Jill to convince him that he's like so free is just give him a SSI check every month, so he can buy his, Dr. Pepper and Mountain Dew and, Cheeto chips. And so he can join live streams on YouTube every other day, and talk about blabber about bullshit and about what he believes. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's all they had to do to convince this guy that he's so free and America is so amazing and that Trump is like a savior on earth. That's all they had to do. All they had to do is give this knucklehead, some SSI money for his snacks and drinks. And so he can pay YouTube and StreamYard, or, for his internet, so that he can, join live streams, every other day. I mean, come on, man. This is dumb. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is getting ridiculous now. Jill said, "I'm looking around me. There is no depression. We are all still recovering from Biden administration, but not a depression at all." No, not a depression at all. What the hell are you talking about? Like, knucklehead, I don't know if you've been living under a rock, but since the whole event in 2020, which can't be named, but you know what I'm talking about if it got half a brain cell. Um, but is it not true that when this whole economy got shut down, that was under Trump's administration. So is it not true that all these problems stemmed from his guidance over the shutdown? Now, I'm not going to say that Biden was like, totally, innocent and didn't contribute to it. I'm sure he absolutely did as well for his 4-year term. I'm not going to deny that. That's true. But let's not just pretend that, oh, everything was, peaches and cream when Trump was in office from, 2016 to 2020. Everything was all just amazing. Like, let's not just sit there and believe such stupid shit like that, man. Again, living in America has always been expensive. It has always been expensive, right? It's never been cheap, right? It's never been affordable to live in the United States. It's gotten worse over time. So it's never been great, right? It's never been great. It's never been amazing, but it's just over the course of time got just even more worse than what it has been. You know what I'm saying? Like that's just the reality. That's just the reality of what it is. Bear with me a second. Yeah, choose background noise. Um, but yeah, if anybody has a question or a comment, do feel free to let that be known in the comment section here, and I will address your question. Let me see. Yeah, Joe, I'm not really interested, excuse me, in debating, well, if Trump was, better for America than Biden. As far as I know, all these numbskulls are just puppets on a string being controlled by behind the scenes, right? Trump's a puppet, Biden's a puppet, Bush is a puppet, Obama's a puppet. All of the presidents throughout America's history are just puppets on a string being controlled by leaders behind the scenes. Like, come on, man. You can't claim that you're in the truth and you don't know about this shit. I mean, shit, this knucklehead probably believes that September 11th was like, the government had no involvement with that at all. I mean, shit, this knucklehead might even believe in the moon landing at this point. Oh, why would they lie? Why would they lie to me? Ridiculous. Oh man, that reminds me. I joined a black community live stream. I want to say like 2 years ago. The YouTube channel, if you want to look them up, it's called Q Buther. Q Buther, right? And I was on there and having a discussion of like, oh, you believe the world's not a globe? Oh, how dumb. It's like, okay, well, would you knuckleheads even know anything about the globe? He asked them, okay, well, do you know like the circumference of the earth? Guy's like, well, I don't even know what the word circumference means. So, okay. Well, just to correct you, just so you have a little education, they say the circumference of the world. If I was to start here, walk around the world, and come back right up to where I'm sitting here, is roughly, 24,900 and some miles in circumference. Maybe you should take note of that. You ask, okay, well, do you know the distance between the sun and the earth according to the heliocentric and geocentric model? And first of all, do you even know the difference between, would you even know what the words heliocentric or geocentric even mean? Like I asked Captain Tazariak of the ISUPK, right, this top level scholar and leader about, the heliocentric and geocentric. He's like, I don't even know what that word even means. I don't even know what that means. It's like, okay, all right. But going back to the Cube other guys, yeah, do you guys know the distance between the sun and the earth? Oh, no clue, man, no clue. Like, okay, do you guys know how long ago they say the earth formed? Oh, no clue, man. Do you know when they say the Big Bang occurred? Oh, I got no clue, man. So long story short, they end up bringing a knucklehead on to engage me in a debate. They call this guy the Wolverine, and this guy is like their top of the line scholar and master debater on the Cube other community. So I was like, yeah, bring the guy up. If Wolverine wants to have a throwdown, we can have a throwdown. So the knucklehead comes up, calling me all, well, that's, dumb, that's, stupid. And then I ask him, okay, well, let's say this, like, if you could educate me for a second, why do you think that they actually went to the moon in 69? Like, why do you believe that? And I kid you not, right? I'm not even being sarcastic here. The thing that this guy said that is the proof that convinced him we went to the moon. This is literally what he said. They say that they went to the moon, so I believe they went to the moon. And then he also said, I know it is real because I seen it on TV. Let me say that again. Listen closely. This top of the line scholar, Wolverine for the black community at Q Brothers channel. He said he knows they went to the moon in the 60s because they said that they went there and he saw it on TV. When I heard that, I was like, wow, this is like their top of the line scholar that these guys have over here. Like this is their top guy. And all it took to convince his dumb ass that they went to the moon is just show him some like AI video or just some video they faked on a Hollywood stage and just tell him that they went there. Like literally, Knucklehead's like, well, I believe they went because they said they did. Okay, I mean, the government says a lot of things. Like the government says that prices are down right now. So do you believe that too? The government's saying that depression rates are going down. Do you believe that too? Well, first of all, the government told you that thing in 2020, right? The yabby yab or rooster, read between the line, they were saying that that's all, perfectly, great and no worry at all, right? No worry at all. So do you believe them too? But like at what, seriously, Wolverine, like at what point do you be skeptical of what you're being told? Okay, yeah, you seem like just an ignorant novice, just kissing the ass of the master, just like Mr. Jill in the comment section here. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. And by the way, I will also want to criticize Q Brother and the pathetic black community that he runs over there. Listen here, I've been joining live streams on YouTube since 2015 or 2016. Out of the thousands of panels I've been on over the years, I have never had a single person tell me, well, we can't let you up to talk unless you, give us some money. You have to give a donation in order to be on this platform and talk. Except for Q Brother. I went on there, like the second time I went on there, they were like, we know, man, well, you're white, right? And we're black. So, if you want to come up here and talk, you should, give us a donation, right? You should give us a donation to come up here and talk. So, and I confront him as like, so you guys are trying to say that, these white streamers and white panelists are like so bad and corrupt. But you don't see any of them asking their viewers, oh, well, you can't come up and join my stream unless you give me money. But these numbskulls in Q Brothers black community, they are desperately trying to get donations, saying you cannot even come on our stage and talk unless you give us money. And if you don't, we'll kick you out and won't let you talk unless you give us money. But you guys apparently are like doing better than these white streamers that you guys are criticizing, who literally are not begging people for donations to join and talk. Like, I mean, seriously, like what logic do you guys have behind what you're saying? Oh, well, we don't know, man. Well, we're just smart black men. It's like, okay. I mean, hey, man, if you want to believe a lie, then you're welcome to believe a lie. I don't feel bad for you. If you just want to be dumb and ignorant, then you're welcome to be dumb and ignorant. I mean, hey, look, not everybody can have the truth, right? Some people have to believe in a lie, and some people have the truth. That's just their reality. Man, people are active out here tonight, man, so do excuse the background noise. Bear for me a second, let me just see real quick. So it looks like Judah put up a response to numbskull Jill. He said, no depression, huh? $20 can't even hold me for 2 days. I went shopping for canned goods, paying $3 each at Walmart, $60 to $80 for a new game with no disc. And let's not forget about the housing market in Gen Z. Yeah, yeah, it's ridiculous, for you to just sit there and pretend everything is like peaches and cream, all, people are just over exaggerating. Let me give you an example. Like I saw a TikTok video where I was doing like a whole binge of watching like people ranting. Like people take from TikTok like 20 clips of people ranting about, whatever the topic is, and I'll do like a compilation and upload it to YouTube, right? So I was watching like 20 of them for the last couple days, because it's really relatable with what a lot of people are on there talking about. But sometimes you get some dumb people too. Like there was one clip somebody was saying, "Well, I don't really understand why people are saying $100 don't get much anymore," right? Because like other people are showing salmon and chicken that they're getting, and maybe a $10 bottle of wine, and some you know maybe some protein mix that they have to have, and stuff like that, right? Showing maybe 8 items for $100. And then this numbskull was like, "Well, I don't get why people are saying $100 doesn't stretch." And then she shows like 30 items, but guess what? Literally all of those 30 items are like $2 or $3 each, maybe $5. But they're all cheap processed foods, right? Cheap processed foods. And she's like, "Well, man, I don't really get why people are just over exaggerating why $100 don't get much today. It really seems like people are just making it worse than what it is." It's like, dumbass, you do realize that the people who are complaining are trying to buy, actual healthy, um, nutritious food for them and their families, right? Things that we need, like, fish, meat, vegetables, things like that. And she's sitting here, all cheap, Tyson nuggets, cheap, pizza, and just, dumb shit like that. And she's like, "Oh, well, I don't get why people are saying $100 don't go far." Meanwhile, she has all this, cheap processed shit. I mean, hey, look, if you're buying, cheap, $2, $3 things here or there that are, very bad for you, then yeah, it's going to go a lot further than if you're actually buying good, healthy things. But again, that's what they want. They want you buying, all these, Chips Ahoy and, ice cream and yogurts, right, loaded with sugar, right? All these, sweet drinks. They want you doing that. That's why they attempt to keep the prices of those things low so you can buy them and think that you're getting a lot because, well, look, here's like 10 snacks I got for like $25 compared to a handful of fruits or vegetables for the same amount of money. You know what I'm saying? Again, a lot of people are just dumb and ignorant today, man. Like Wolverine. "Oh, I believe they went to the moon." We ask, "Well, why?" "Oh, well, I saw it on TV and they said they went." I mean, come on, man. You got to do better than this, right? You got to be. There's no way you can be this dumb. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no way you can be this dumb. Like Mr. Jill. "Oh, everything's, was all fine and dandy under Trump. Everything was just amazing under Trump." Say, okay, well, just to inform you, Mr. Jill, because maybe you've been living under a rock for the last, 20 years or whatever. But I even remember going back to, say, like 2012, for example, right? The year everybody thought the world would end because of some Mayan calendar. But regardless of that, I remember back in school, there were kids, had to, skip meals. And you know how I know? Because I was one of them. Like say, for instance, I would have to get sometimes that cheap, just peanut butter and jelly with a water on the side, right? That literally, won't let you get the meal the other kids have because you don't have the, $5 to afford it. There's statistics coming out now that like, what is it? They say 3 out of 5 children in America go to bed hungry at night. Look that up. That's a statistic. And that wasn't different 10 years ago. There were still, millions and millions of children across the US who were going to bed hungry at night under Trump. So, don't believe liars like Jill who just pretend everything was a amazing utopia under Trump from like 2016 to 2020, and then Biden messed everything up. I mean, you're dumb if you believe that. And again, not saying that Biden was, amazing. He's obviously wicked and contributed to now. Oh, well, everything was amazing under Trump. I mean, you're just dumb, man. I mean, you're just logically not consistent with yourself. And that's just a fact. So yeah, something that Judah brought up about, $80 for a game with no disc. Yeah, exactly, man. They're trying to scrap out, all of the physical media, like, movies. For example, I remember going to the movie theater, like say 13 years ago, and they had like literally two damn aisles completely filled of like any movie that you could ever imagine and want to buy. You go today, there's only like what, half an aisle, literally half an aisle of movies, and they're all like new releases. Or if you're looking for a certain movie, you have to buy the entire series. You can't just go to get like one movie you're missing out of like a trilogy. Like, say, if you're missing like the sixth Harry Potter movie, but you have like the other ones. Well, you can't buy the sixth one. You have to buy the entire series if you want it. Right. And that's basically how it is for every movie they have there or series, except for the brand new movie releases, which are like $30 each, of course. But it wasn't like that 10 or 13 years ago, right? It wasn't like that. They're slowly getting rid of that physical media because they want you to just rent it online, right? Buy it online, just like the video games. They want you to buy it online, so that any point, if you violate their guidelines, they can just, totally just ban you and say, well, look, you didn't obey the rules. So we're taking you, away from the game. Of course, we're going to keep your, 80 or $90, of course, let's not forget that. But yeah, we can remove it from you, right? And you can't do nothing because you don't have a physical disc, right? It was just like a digital download that you paid us for, so we can revoke it at any time. And that's clearly what they're moving towards, man. And it really is getting that way. And again, if you just want to be ignorant, then you're welcome to be ignorant. But I mean, it's becoming very clear now as to, who's telling the truth and who's telling a lie. Like, for an example, I'm somebody telling the truth, and Jill is somebody telling a lie. And that's very obvious to see. Now, I don't believe Jill is deliberately lying to you. He's just deceived, right? It's not like Jill is being paid by somebody to come up here and spread misinformation. That's not true. Jill's just a novice that got tricked because he's gullible, and that's just what it is. Same thing with a lot of different people that you see on YouTube. Johnny said presidential bloodline info is out there. Yeah, good point. You can look into that. Right. They say, I've heard about that. They say a lot of the presidents throughout American history are like related as far as their blood, right? Their bloodlines related, right? An interesting topic to look into. Right. And Johnny said, and Nixon called them at the moon, laughing my ass off. Yeah, yeah, good point. Really good point. Right. So apparently, um, Nixon, right, the president at the time, apparently called them from the moon. But meanwhile, there's places on Earth that you can't even get cell service. Like, seriously, if you go to the Sahara Desert, you go to the Amazon rainforest over in Brazil, you go to the Atlantic Ocean, among, dozens upon dozens of other locations on Earth, you can't get any cell service there. You want to know why? Well, that's because there's not, 50,000 satellites circling the world. That's a lie. The the cell signal is because of the cell towers that you have around the cities that you're living in. That's where you get the cell service from. As far as internet, that goes by cables that are under the sea. There's literally thousands of videos of them showing you these like cables that connect continents under the seafloor, or I should say on the seafloor. Look into that. Now, as far as satellites, I would agree there's not satellites as far as they're depicted. Like if you go on Google, look up a picture of a satellite, all of those are just artist illustrations. But there are satellites that are on high altitude weather balloons, right? And they just hover for a period of time and then they'll just crash to the earth and, a location where people are not at. And over the course of time, deteriorate. Government could even pick them up, or most of the time they land out in the ocean and just demineralize as they enter the atmosphere or upon hitting the waves. One crash landed in Brazil, I want to say like 5 or 6 years ago, where you saw the popped balloon still attached to the satellite. So don't get me wrong, satellites are real, but it's nowhere near the amount that they claim they are. Right? There's not 50,000 of them, floating around the earth. And something else funny? Whenever you watch the ISS, quote unquote, live feed of the earth, which Joe probably believes in that too, just like that other knucklehead Wolverine. Oh, well, it's real, man, because look, it's right here. It says NASA. Why should I question it? It's like, okay, well, have you ever seen a satellite on it? Have you ever seen a satellite circling the Earth from the ISS live feed? There's supposed to be 50,000 of them up there. Why has there never been one or two called on video before from the ISS? Oh, I don't know, man. Don't ask questions. Just believe it, right? Just believe them. Why would they lie to us? Or why would they lie? It's ridiculous. Yeah, that's a good question, Judah. You said, if we pay taxes, why are children starving in our public school system? Yeah, that's a really good question. Right, that's a really good question. All right, I see Jay down here in the comment section. Welcome, Mr. J. Which I did speak on you earlier. You can go back and listen to that. He said, I cannot join a UTT watching from work. Okay, that's no problem. We can set up a conversation another night where I can invite you up and have a discussion. That's fine with me. Um, but yeah, it's ridiculous, what's going on out here, man. He said, I heard what you said and I have responses. Well, you can keep most of your responses until you come up here and have a conversation. That way we can keep a fruitful conversation there. But I am curious of this one thing, though, Jay. Maybe you can answer this one thing for me. I am just curious how you can claim to represent Christ, right? Represent Christ. Which remember, Christ represents the law of God. Christ said in Matthew 5:17-19, none of the law has been done away. Anybody who teaches to break even the very least of the commandments, they're going to be the very least in the kingdom. But those who teach to keep the commandments, they're going to be great in God's kingdom. So Christ said that none of the law is done away. So I'm just curious how you can say on one hand you believe in Christ and represent him and teach about him, but on the other hand, you reverence and respect a dictator who's responsible for the death of, they say, millions of people. But even if it was only 500,000 or a million, that still doesn't negate the fact that he's a mass murderer responsible for the death of great numbers of people. So I'm just curious, maybe that's one thing that you can address here, Jay, how you can believe in Jesus, but still, on the other hand, defend a mass murderer. And I hear you say, oh, well, he had better, good intentions. They just misrepresent. Even if that's the case, that doesn't negate the fact that he's a mass murderer, which the Bible condemns as a great sin unto death. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no logical standpoint that you can defend what you're saying, my friend. And as I said earlier, the Bible says, and literally the first 10 commandments that God gave down to Moses said, "Thou shalt not kill." So, um, the German leader, he's in violation of just that one alone. Not even to get into any other things. Regarding him and his life. But just on that one fact alone, I mean, yeah, that's a hard point right there. Excuse the background noise. Man, as hell, the demons are coming out here tonight, man. People walking around these streets possessed. It's funny. Yesterday I had to go to Taco Bell to get something, right? I had to pick up an order there. Go in and the dude at the counter, jumping around like a damn rabbit, hanging sideways. You could tell this dude's, on some type of like, sweet substances, man, right? This dude's, he's smoking something, right? He's smoking something. Maybe, the preacher sent him a care package or something. I don't know. But the dude, leaning over like a damn zombie or something. Jay said, "Yeah, that never happened." Well, what never happened? What never happened? Just out of curiosity. So, and I'm just curious because I asked you before and you answered. You said you do accept the history of World War I. Which, by the way, did you know that Hitler was, or I should say Adolf, excuse me, was actually a soldier in the First World War? Did you know about that? So he partook in that too. Just a fun fact to throw out there. Um, but oh shit, what was I gonna say? Damn, now I totally lost train of thought of what I wanted to bring up. But going back to this, what exactly is not true? Well, what exactly story didn't happen? Oh, I know what I was gonna say. You said you accept the history of World War I. You accept the school history on that. Okay, cool. So why do you not accept it about the Second World War then? Right? Like why do you accept the first one, the information you get, but then the second one you don't? That just doesn't make sense. So I mean, like, what exactly never happened? I mean, you need to make sense of what you're saying. I said I sent you material to watch and disprove that nonsense, but you didn't do so. Well, I did actually check out a handful of videos that you and your little buddy um, Ghost sent me. I did check out a couple of the videos you gave, but they don't prove anything. I mean, shit. Realistically, like the video you guys show where he's like having a speech on stage. I mean, shit. Realistically, that could even be AI. You know what I'm saying? Like, how the hell would you know? And second of all, they're translating a speech from him into your language, so they might not even say exactly what he actually said. And then second of all, or I should say third of all, if you look at the description of the video, it says the speech happened, like 11 years before, such and such event took place. It's like, okay, so maybe he said certain things in a speech, but that doesn't reflect what happened years later under his authority and command. Like, I mean, what are you talking about? Yeah, yeah, I see what you're talking about the mass roundup, right? Which I can't really use that word on there, but the deletion of a great number of certain people, which everybody should know, right, about that event, which again I can't list here because you two don't like it. But yeah, for you to say that never happened, that's just totally dumb. I mean, you can literally visit the places today where these things took place. I mean, there's literally survivors today living right now that had this experience and can recount. We have historical text from this timeline. Have you ever read Anne Frank's work? Is she a work of fiction too, man? So yeah, these things really happen. They're not a deception or a lie. Now, sure, somebody could argue that maybe some events are being over exaggerated. Maybe that's a possibility, but to pretend that it never happened in general, that's just totally retarded to say. That's just not true. Let me ask you a question. Do you also believe that D-Day didn't happen either? Was D-Day just a deception and a lie? You know, over 3,000 U.S. troops died on, what was it, Omaha Beach? Believe, I believe D-Day happened on, I believe it's June 6, 1944 or 45. You can look that up. But is that not true either? Like, I mean, we could literally pull up, you know, 8,000 documentaries on YouTube about this, where some of them even go out to the location where these things happen. I seen a video where they took a survivor from D-Day to Omaha Beach, right? A dude, collapsed, on the beach, right? That he's back in the war zone, right? Where he fought many years ago, right? He totally, couldn't believe that he was back there. You can look up and find that video, man. So, like, what do you mean at like these things didn't happen? Like, what are you talking about? I mean, come on, man. You need to be smarter than this. You guys have to be smarter than this. And another point, as I said, we're on the verge of a total breakdown, right? A total a World War III, right? A Great Depression, right? The collapse of everything. And you guys just want to argue this dumb shit? I mean, like, come on, man. You guys need to get over yourself. You know what I'm saying? There's so many important things to talk about. But let me understand this though, right? Like I saw that Jay put up a comment on a recent video I did about certain subjects, and I reference a researcher that has the name of Robert Epstein. And all Jay could think about is, well, maybe we shouldn't talk about anything from a researcher that has the word uh, uh, Epstein in his name, right? So like he's automatically like completely disregarded and rejected just because he happens to have the same name as somebody in recent news. Like, I mean, are you serious? Like this is really where your mind is? That we can totally disregard what a researcher says just because his last name just happens to be the name of another individual that's in recent news. Are you serious? Like, come on, man. You need to be smarter than this. Let me tell you something. I used to have when I was 14, 15 years old, I had a friend of mine I used to hang out with a couple of times, and his name was Angel. So should I not hang around him because his name is Angel? So somebody might say, "Oh, well, how could you be named Angel? An angel is like, an angel in heaven. How could you have the same name? You must be like an actor or being paid to lie because you have that name." Like, come on, man. This is ridiculous. Or I'll give you another example. There's people in the world, and I've accounted, what's the word I'm looking for? I've spoke to some of these people over the years who are named Jesus, right? I've seen some of them, over times, someone here named Christ or named Jesus, right? That's the name that some boys get. So somebody might say, "Oh, well, look, well, his name is Jesus, so he's a false Christ." It's like, well, he's not even claiming to be a Christ. That's just the name his parents gave him. Just because his name is Jesus, that doesn't mean that he's like now some type of like false impersonator of Christ. Like that's just dumb. That's just so idiotic to believe, man. And I'm going to say this is going to be a controversial statement, but this is true. With all these whole, Epstein files that everybody's losing their mind over the last, what, month or two now. This is really just a big distraction to, from the bigger events, taking place. Like first of all, the war in Ukraine in 4 days now has hit its anniversary. Think about that. The largest war in Europe in 80 years is still raging on with no end in sight, 4 years on now. We got, the US dollar dropping every hour of the day. right? The value that you get for the US dollars just continues to go down. The US debt is just continuing to rise every other day. I believe it's at what, 37 trillion now. The price of silver recently went over $115 for the first time in history. And you knuckleheads just want to talk about a couple of files that some knuckleheads underground in an office could literally just print up and you all lose your mind over it. Like, seriously, they could literally add any celebrity's name to these files and you all would just believe it. Like, shit, they could add, um, Drake on there. They could add Eminem, or they could add Creflo Dollar. Hey, they could add Jimmy, right? Mr. Beast. They could add, you know, uh, uh, Jill Savior Trump on there, right? They could add anybody onto this. They could add any celebrity or any person onto these files, and you will just believe it. Oh, it must be true. It's like, okay, couldn't they just fabricate these files to keep you people distracted by shit that don't matter? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that this Epstein character is like some innocent person. I'm sure he's done evil and wicked things that God is going to judge him for. I'm not going to deny that at all, right? He's an evil, wicked man. That is true. But these files that they're, releasing to the public, it's like, you don't think that they could literally just fabricate these things out of thin air and you all just believe it like a bunch of blind sheep? Like, you really think that you're not being distracted from something bigger? Like, why don't we talk about NASA's files where they talk about the Earth being a fixed, unmovable plane? Why don't we talk about how NASA's getting 65 plus $1 million from the US taxpayer every 24 hours? Why don't we talk about that? You know what I'm saying? Like, why don't we talk about those files? Why don't we talk about that shit instead of, just a couple of celebrities that, are just written on a couple of files because they might have, been invited to a party on some island, 8 years ago. You know what I'm saying? It's ridiculous. This is the shit that people are distracted with today. I mean, it really is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. You people are just distracted by anything at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is ridiculous. It's so dumb how stupid everybody is today. Like, oh, I saw it on TV, man. It must be true, right? You got literally people, bowing to their knees to the U.S. Congress, pleading, crying, oh, release the files, right? Release them files, begging them, oh, give us these files. It's like, okay, like, let's say next week, if they give you all the files, like, what are you guys going to do with that exactly? And again, I want to point out that they could literally fabricate these files out of thin air. They could add any person's name in the world to these files, and you all believe it because you're, a bunch of peons and knuckleheads. You know what I'm saying? Like, seriously, use your brain. This guy said, "Do you read Chat ETT?" Yes, sir, I do read chat, but I would appreciate if you can be patient until I get to your comment. Okay, bear with me a second. From the stage, but for some reason it's not letting me do that. Man, I really don't like the update that they gave the comments on StreamYard. Before, you used to be able to just click it and it will pop up on the screen. But now you have to like click a whole confirmation. You know what I'm saying? Let me address this real quick. He said, dogs are not talking about watching speeches. I send you hours of countless documentaries. Well, let me just tell you something, man. I'm well researched into the topic. I've watched plenty of historical a documentation of these events over the years. So some information that you share, I can check that out as I have, but I don't have endless hours to watch, 50 documentaries. You know what I'm saying? Like, Yo, let me do a mic check real quick. Can you all hear me loud and clear? I apologize, my service cut out on me, so I'm hoping that it will pull through. Um, so yeah, we'll see how that goes. I'm not sure what all I said that you guys could hear because I wasn't looking at the screen when it cut off. Um, but to round up what I was saying is, I've seen some of these informations that you or ghosts give, but it really just amounts to nothing. You know what I'm saying? Like I've watched plenty of historical documentaries about these events. So I see no evidence in contradiction to those things. And hey, if you see differently, you can see differently. I'm not going to sit there and fight you over it. But what I will fight you over, though, what I will criticize you of, is claiming that you represent Christ, but you still defend a mass deletioner. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't do that, man. Or I mean, hey, if you want to do that, and you do that, man. But you're going completely off according to the scriptures to defend that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, again, I can't control you. You believe whatever you want. Hell, if Jill wants to believe that Trump's like some type of savior, let the knucklehead believe that. I can't change his mind. But that's just not true. Just like what Jay is saying is just not true. It's a convenient lie. And again, you're welcome to believe what you want, but it's just not true. You said Anne Frank is exactly fiction. Well, could I ask you how is that? How is she fiction if she actually existed? Like, did you know? Let me educate you real quick. Did you know there's actually a one videotape that exists where Anne Frank is in frame? Like, you can look this up on YouTube. Got millions of views. You can see Anne Frank for like a couple shots of a video. She was looking over a balcony, right? And you can actually see her. So what do you mean that she didn't exist? And by the way, this is years and years and years before AI. You know what I'm saying? So you can't sit there, just AI. He's like, no, I can't say that. This is from beforehand. So what do you mean that she didn't exist? I mean, I just caught you in a lie there, man. Now, maybe if you want to say her story is exaggerated, I mean, that's a different claim. But you're saying she did not exist entirely, which I just proven you to be a liar. So you can retract that statement because that's just not true. That's a good point. John said history repeats itself. Trump's building camps in Utah. Yeah, Trump is building these, may we call them concentration camps. Maybe I got to watch what I say, but that's what they are. Like, did you guys know in Florida, in the Everglades, last year they built something called Alligator Alcatraz, where it's literally out in the marshes, right, protected by alligators and mosquitoes. And you take these immigrants there right before they deport them, right? So it's very difficult to escape because if you do get past all the guards and barbed wire, your ass is going to get, bit by the mosquitoes or the damn alligators. You know what I'm saying? So Trump is out here, holding people in these cells and prisons. Yeah, exactly. I'm spitting facts here. Here's what I'm doing. Yeah, this is a really good point, Johnny. Johnny said some people can't see the truth. Yeah, that's a really good point. Some people just can't see the truth. Some people are just blind, and you're welcome to be blind. Like as I said, if Joe wants to believe in the Trinity, he's welcome to go believe in the Trinity. I'm not gonna sit there and fight you for 10 years of why I would disagree with you. I mean, we've had a couple debates here and there, of course, but hey, look, if you want to believe that, you go believe that, man. If I don't see it that way, I won't see it that way. Well, as far as his Trinity belief, I think I clearly refuted him with the scriptures. Anybody can watch those debates and come to your own conclusion. very clear as to who's telling the truth and who's telling a lie. And, as I said, if someone wants to be comfortable with believing and living a lie, then you're welcome to do that. You know what I'm saying? If you want to live a lie, then you're welcome to live a lie. Like, there's people out here that will fight tooth and nail to defend the moon landing, to say, yes, we actually did go in the 60s. And, these conspiracy videos on YouTube are just there to trick people. If you want to believe that and you go believe that, like, I don't lose nothing from you believing nonsense. You know what I'm saying? But it is my job as a teacher, right? Someone who stands up for righteousness, to correct you and to give you the truth, and if you don't want to accept the truth, then that's upon you. I have a saying that goes, you can lead a horse to water, but you cannot make it drink, right? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink, right? You can give a person the truth, but you cannot force them to believe the truth. Like, I can confront Jay about his views with, the Germans and Frank. I can confront him on that and show him how he's in error, but he can choose to not believe that if he chooses, right? That's his personal choice, and he's welcome to believe that. Doesn't make him right, but he's welcome to believe that if he views it that way. He said, you believe the earth is flat and America's lying about space, but they wouldn't lie about the Germans. Come on, dog. Well, this is why Tazariak says listening is an art. Like, Jay, if you paid attention, I said that I would acknowledge that perhaps some things are blown out of proportion. Some things might be over exaggerated. Sure, I'm not going to sit there and deny that. Like, say, for instance, like they say that the Germans killed like what, roughly 11 million. I said, okay, well, maybe that's over exaggerated. Maybe it's only 5 million. But guess what? Even if it was only 1 million, that still doesn't make him some type of like righteous ruler. Like, come on, man. Like, even if it was only 1 million, the point still stands. You know what I'm saying? So for you to sit there and say, oh, well, all these stories are just all fabricated and not real. I mean, well, you're completely cut, because you can literally go today to visit these historical sites where these stories took place. Like, say, for instance, Jay, what if an atheist told you, well, the Bible's all fiction? And then you asked them, okay, well, how could the story and history of Jerusalem be fiction if Jerusalem still stands today? And you'd be like, oh, yeah, well, see, the atheist is cut because Jerusalem does exist, thus proving the history of it, which would be a good point. But guess what, though? You're still cut, though, because you're saying that all the World War II sites are just fiction and made up. But I confronted you and said you can go visit these sites today where these events took place. So how are you saying that they didn't at all happen? Like, again, a more rational argument from your perspective would be that they're over-exaggerated, not that it's completely fake. That's just a dumb perspective to have. Clearly, they happened, but maybe they're over-exaggerated slightly. You know what I'm saying? Like, that would be a more rational for someone who's skeptical to have. Not to just say, oh, well, it's all not real. It's like, okay, I mean, well, what do you mean? I mean, there's people living alive today who were there who experienced these things, have been interviewed and gave their testimony of these things. You know what I'm saying? It's not logical to just pretend all of this isn't real. You know what I'm saying? It's just totally dumb. And again, I'll say it again, you're welcome to view it that way if you like. You're welcome to your view and opinion, but that's just a lie. This guy said, silver been good to me. Been buying for a decade. Yeah, that's good, man. Hey, good for you. If you're able to stack up, 1,000 bars, that's good, man. I mean, me personally, I only have like 16 ounces of silver. I was gifted 2 ounces by somebody, but I bought like 14 ounces of silver for myself. I want to say about 5 years ago, 4.5, 5 years ago, I bought like 14 ounces of silver from some dude on like some trader, right? It's like some dude that trades these things, collects them, and trade them. I paid at the time $30 for each of the coins, which at the time I thought, damn, maybe I'm messing up because I know they previously were like $20, but here I am buying them at 30 each. And lo and behold, within the last, month or so, we saw the shit jump up to, $115. It did go down, but it's still hovering at like $85 right now as I speak, which again is insane. So yeah, good for you, man, if you're able to take advantage of that while you were able to. Johnny said, talk about digital ID, total control coming. Yes, that is true. And that goes into the Bible, right? Revelation 13:16 calls them all to take a mark in the hand in order to buy and sell, right? That's what they want. They want you chipped, right? And that chip will have all of your personal information on it, right? Everything about you, all they got to do is just scan the chip. Like say, for instance, if some dude's in like a wreck or something or found, on the side of the road, they might bring them to the emergency room. Now they would consider that to be a John Doe, right? If he doesn't have an ID on him or any type of papers or something to identify him, he'd be labeled as John Doe, right? They don't know his name yet, but they still got to work on him, fix him up or whatever. Um, but guess what? With this ID, this chip implanted under your skin, you're going to be able to be uh, they can see who the hell you are right away. Just scan the chip, all the information comes up, all the banking information, where you're come from, right? If you're an immigrant, how old you are, right? Your quote unquote criminal history, all of it will come up, right? Total control. And, we're very close to this happening. It's not some type of like far drawn out thing. Like this could literally happen, 6 months from now, a year from now, right? 2 months from now. The technology is there. They just need a event to rule it out upon the people. So once again, I'm going to stress the fact again, the MOTB literally could happen any day now. That's the time we're in. But guys want to sit there and debate about if the Germans were like actually, righteous and are they just being misrepresented? I mean, come on, man. This is just this is getting exhausting, man. It really is. The dumb things that people come up with online is just really upsetting. And again, I'll say it again. If you want to believe that, you're welcome to believe that. But don't get mad at me for correcting you on your ignorance. That's what I got to say. No, you're good, man. Right? You're good. No worry. I did not all mean to be disrespectful. So I do apologize if it came off that way. But yeah, I hear you, man. Right? I feel how you're feeling. Right? I feel how you're feeling, man. It is really hard, in the world today to have a positive, mindset and attitude. A good channel I'd recommend that you look into, a guy that thinks very similar to me on some of these topics, and perhaps you might find interest. I'd recommend looking up a channel called Born into a Corrupt System, right? Born into a Corrupt System. This dude, which is not really religious, but he does a lot of, good rants and talks about how, this modern life we're living is, totally exhausting and, really, it's bad. It's bad the way things are, man. So yeah, I hear you, man. It's not easy today to have a good attitude on life and, the way everything is. Everything is just it's hard. I'm not gonna lie to you, man. Like I was looking earlier at some video I took and some pictures I took back in like 2016, 2015. I was like, man, I really wish that I could just go back in time 10 years, man. I really wish that I could, go back in time. It's the way the world was ten years ago, much better than what it is today. And don't get me wrong, back then there were hardships, there was suffering, but it was much greater than what it is today. Right? It was much better than what it is today, man. So I hear you, man. A lot of people out here, especially Gen Z people, feeling the same way. And they have every right to feel that way because the world that we were given is just total bullshit, right? It's totally corrupt, right? Total bullshit. And then they have the nerve to call us the lazy and entitled ones, right? Like some of these boomers out here. It's like buddy, you know, when you were my age, a house was like what, a couple years worth of salary. But meanwhile, I out here, right, and fellow Gen Z, we'd have to literally work for hundreds of years on the minimal wage that we're getting to afford a damn house at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not even a damn exaggeration at this point. So I feel you, man. Having a view like that, a mindset like that makes sense today. Right. So, with feeling like that, man, don't forget that a lot of us out here are feeling the same thing. So we're with you on that, my friend. So don't forget that. Yeah, as I said, you're all good, no worries. Let's see. Oh, MMA Paradise. Here for me a second. Yeah, how are you doing, my friend? Bruce Wayne. This is, for those who don't know, this is that Catholic, not Catholic, the Baptist. This is the Baptist that I debated. I believe it was literally the last live stream I did. This Baptist dude that I met on like some other live stream. I invited him to come over here, to have a discussion, to continue the discussion because it wasn't going well. Because we were on like a panel of 10 people, so that gets all hectic. So I was like, come over here, man. We'll just have a one-on-one conversation, keep it cool. And he did, right? He was actually pretty respectable, but clearly ignorant and incorrect as to what he believes. Bear with me a second. Bruce says your soul is worth saving according to the scripture, but this is what I'm confused though, Bruce. Um, we had a 3-hour debate about the scripture, right, in our view, and we both concluded, yeah, we both believe on Christ. So I'm just curious why you make it seem like I'm like denying Christ, right? Like I'm not sure if I believe in Christ or not. You act as if I'm like some type of like atheist or agnostic, which clearly I'm not. That's how the comment comes off to me. He's like, "Oh, well, your soul is worth saving according to the Bible." It's like, buddy, I already say that I believe upon Christ and live by what he said. So like, what are you talking about? You make it sound like I'm like an atheist or agnostic. But I literally told you like 50 times, yeah, I believe on Christ and live by what he said and teach what he said. You see, his problem, based on my conversation, is he believes in once saved, always saved, right? If you confess Jesus when you were 6 years old, in elementary school, oh, you're saved forever, right? If you just confess Jesus on a random Wednesday night with, just a sinner's prayer or something, oh, you're saved forever, right? Even though, 20 years in the future, you might become a Satanist or a Buddhist. Oh, you're saved forever, right? You're just all saved forever. I mean, come on, man. You got whooped, right? You got completely whooped in that debate, right? You're proven once saved, always saved is a lie. Sorry, man, but, you know, if you think that you're just going to say a couple magic words and then, skip your way into the kingdom of heaven, you're just delusional to think that way. And I'm sorry, Mr. Bruce, but you're not going to trick me to believe in that nonsense. You might trick Jill well, shit, I can't even say you might trick Jill because Jill literally believes in that shit. He believes in once saved, always saved. So shit, I can't even say you might trick him because he is already in the trick bag. So I got to retract that statement. Shit, you might be able to, trick some of these other numbskulls around YouTube to believe in that nonsense. I mean, shit, all you got to do is reach out to Jill, who'll join you on that journey of convincing people once saved, always saved. Shit, I guarantee it. Bruce said, living a lie when the scripture is right in your face. But Bruce, what lie am I living though exactly? Like I'm very curious with your Baptist views. Like, what lie am I living exactly? Because let's recap. I teach people believe on Christ and live by the law of God. Christ told us to live by the law, so I teach to live by the law. We teach you cannot get to the kingdom without accepting Christ. If you don't accept Christ, you can't get there. If you don't keep God's law, you can't get there. That's what I stand on over here and teach. So can you please correct me, or at least attempt to give me some understanding, which obviously you're not going to be able to, but let me understand, what exactly am I teaching that's a lie on that topic? Like, let's read the comment again. He said, "Living a lie when the scripture is right in your face." Well, what lie am I teaching or living though exactly? You know what I'm saying? It's dumb. Well, I wouldn't agree with you to say that. Zoriak's a really smart guy. Now that doesn't mean everything he says is true. There are clearly some errors with what he says, but that doesn't disregard the fact that he is a smart guy. Just like, I'll give an example. Jay, on some topics he might be smart, but on some other topics he seems to be lacking. Or I'll even say this, even Jill on a couple of topics might make some sense. Like, I'll give an example. Like, we had a discussion with this preterist dude, and me and Jill, we had to like tag team for a couple of minutes to take down the preterist. Because even though me and Jill completely disagree about a large array of topics, we both agree that Christ did not return and that we're living in the end times today. So we both had to tag team the preterist, to take him down. It was kind of like, have you ever seen the Godzilla versus Kong, right? They had to team up at the end to take down the Mecha Godzilla. That's basically what me and Jill had to do, right? Had to team up to take down this preterist dude, and shut him up. And then get back to our own debacle and disagreement. Shit, we had to put our own, disagreements and differences to the side for like, 20, 25, 30 minutes just to take down this other, numbskull saying that Christ returned in 70 AD. It's like, nah. And Jill actually did a really good job. I got to give Jill, believe it or not, I got to give Jill credit on that topic. On the topic of preterism, he actually did a very good job. That doesn't mean he's right about everything he says, obviously. Hey, as the saying goes, a broken clock is right twice a day, right? So yeah, that's an example where Jill actually did a really good job conveying his view. I'll give him credit on that. I'm not going to take that from him. But that doesn't mean he's right about the Trinity. Doesn't mean he's right about eating unclean meats. And all the other subjects of disagreement doesn't now make him right magically, just because he got a couple subjects right for a change. Yeah, they were. They were labor camps. I'm not disagreeing with that. Camps were labor camps, but maybe you are not sure about the harsh conditions on these labor camps. Like people had to go through torture, right? Starvation, right? All types of abuse. Like what are you missing, man? Like what the hell are you missing out on exactly? As I said, you're trying to make the Germans and their leader like some type of like great noble thing. It's like, buddy, like what are you like? Are you high or something, man? I mean, what are you talking about? This is really pathetic, man. Here we are in 2026. The world's literally, coming to an end. Everything is just getting worse and worse and worse. But everybody wants to, well, not everybody, but this guy wants to waste everyone's time with talking about, well, maybe the Germans were actually the good guys. I mean, come on, man. Hell, what would Shrek think, right? What would a minor Shrek think about this. Which, by the way, hopefully Shireg is doing okay wherever he's at. Somebody asked me, I believe it was like on the comment section, or maybe it was in like a live feed, like when I premiered a video, somebody asked me, whatever happened to Shireg, right? The mind of God. And I said, well, he disappeared like 3 years ago after he got a couple predictions wrong. Like he said that Christ would return by January 1st to such and such year. He made a couple predictions. When he got them all wrong, he said, okay, well, basically I'm just going to like disappear. And, nobody's seen him ever since. So hopefully he's doing okay wherever he's at. But, he went down the hill, right? He went really downhill fast, and it's really unfortunate, but use him as a cautionary tale. The dude was so convinced that, Jesus was coming back, within a couple months. So the dude literally threw out all of his degrees and all of his diplomas, sold all of his life possessions, and even, stopped working and basically went back to mommy's house, basically. You know what I'm saying? Like it's dumb. We tried to warn the guy. We tried to talk some sense into him, saying, "Hey, look, man. The Bible says nobody knows when Christ is coming back. It says nobody knows the day and hour. A Mark 13:32. That day and hour knows no man, not the angels in heaven, neither Christ, but only the Father knows." So to sit there and keep putting these dates, you need to repent of that, man. You need to check yourself. He didn't want to take heed to the warnings that I myself, Galapagos, even Jay, and among others were given this guy. So, I mean, hey, man, that was his own stupidity that caused his fall. And, again, I hope he's doing okay wherever he is, whether he went back to Buddhism, whether he's living in India now, wherever he is at, hopefully Shireg is doing okay. Right? That's all I got to say. Hopefully he's doing okay wherever he's at. Yeah, that's a really good point. That is a fantastic point that Johnny made here. He said there is enough black and white videos what happened in Germany. Yeah, that's a really good point. So like Jay, do you believe like all those videos from like, 80 years ago are they all like fake? Are all of those like fake though exactly? Like don't forget, man, AI is like a new thing within the last, let's just say 30 years they've been working on it. Let's just say that for a number. So how can you say that these black and white videos from World War II, oh well, they're just all not real, or you guys are just misrepresenting them? But how the hell are we misrepresenting them? Like, say for instance, like I've seen some of these historical videos, not to get too graphic, but I've seen some of these like mass graves that they've had to dug for these millions of people killed in conflict. Mass graves where you literally see mountains of of the deceased and being pushed into these mass graves. It's like, what are you talking about exactly, man? This is all like not real. It's like, oh, not real somehow. It's all just a lie. Like, what are you talking about? Like, we literally have these historical videos that demonstrate these events. You can literally visit the site of these where these horrific events took place. You know what I'm saying? It's like, what are you talking about? Like, say for instance, um, you might have heard of like sieges of popular castles from like 700-800 years ago. Somebody might say, "Oh, well, that's just fiction. A siege never happened here." But you can go in and visit the actual castle and see like battle scars from like 700 or 800 years ago when the city was besieged. You know what I'm saying? So like, what are you talking about? That well, that was just all a lie. Just like a big trick to fool people. What are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? Like this is not something I thought that would have to be debated in 2026. I would think we all would just accept, okay, well, yeah, in the past, 20th century, there were, two great wars that killed hundreds of millions of people, or at least, like roughly 100 million. Somebody can fact check me on the numbers, which again, I acknowledge could have been over exaggerated. But even if it was only 25 million, just to throw that random number out there, even if it was only 25 million, that's still the deadliest war in all of human history. Like, let's just, cut the semantics. Let's just stop the childish behavior. Any way you look at it, World War I and World War II, they're the two greatest conflicts that the world has ever seen. Well, I guess unless you're a preterist, well, Jesus came back in 70 AD. Wow. But for all those of us out here who are actually smart and can see through deceptions like preterism, there's no war that happened that can match it. Let me educate you even further, Mr. J. They say roughly in the siege of 70 AD, roughly 1 million people died, right? 1 million people, counting in the Roman casualties and the Jewish casualties, right? Roughly 1 million people perished in the siege. So, if that being said, that has nowhere near the death toll of the First and Second World War. Now, again, I'm not taking away anything from 70 AD. It was a great tragedy and great distress upon God's people. That is certainly true. Great judgment upon them. A terrible event, right? Terrible siege. That is true. But that has nothing on the First and Second World War. Like, it has nothing on it as far as the statistics. Like, even if the statistics of World War I and World War II were even cut in half, even by, say, 70%, it's still completely no comparison. So again, man, you're being completely delusional and ignorant of these topics. Like, I don't know what else to tell you. Yeah, that's a great point, Johnny. A great point. Yeah. Well, Johnny, I'll address that. Right, I'll address that moderation. I gave Jay that probably a couple of years ago, so I will check that out and see what I want to do with that. I believe I have like what 3 mods on this channel, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, if anybody's watching and you have a question or comment, this is the time to get in your questions and your comments. Right, this is the time to get your questions and comments in. I'm not sure how much longer we're going to be going. Probably at least 20 more minutes, I imagine. Right? Yeah, at least 20 more minutes. So again, questions or comments, this is the time to get those in right now. Okay, bear with me just 1 second here. Okay, this is funny. Johnny said, I like Perry the Preacher's views. Do anything that you want and get away with it. That Perry guy couldn't stop one sin, so he joined Sin All You Want Club. Yeah, that's basically what the knucklehead did. He's like, oh, well, just say Jesus, or just believe in Jesus. And, you can live however you want, just as long as you don't believe it's wrong. Or as long as you don't believe it's sin, it's not. So you're telling me, let me understand this. So you're telling me, like, if I was to just steal like a bike off someone's porch and I just don't call it sin, that means it's not sin anymore, according to the knucklehead? Or what if I stole like someone's blender out of their kitchen when they're bringing their groceries home? So that's not sin anymore for me because I just said it's not sin. Well, I need a new, blender or toaster, so it's not sin for me. It's like, what the hell? But like, where the hell in the Bible does it say that God's morality is just determined by what people say? Like, come on, man. Like, what's Perry that novice talking about? And it's funny because the dude's like obsessed with me. And how can I prove that? Well, first of all, I um I did a video showing off a Dollar Tree. Keep that in mind, Dollar Tree wooden cross that I hand painted and put together for a decoration, right? And then literally 4 days later, the knucklehead puts up a video, a beautiful, uh, handmade wooden cross, and then he put in the title "Not from Dollar Tree Production." It's like, okay, obviously the knucklehead is just copying what I did, right? And first of all, it wasn't even a damn challenge, or like I didn't even challenge anybody in the video. I just simply showed a project that I made, for a couple of dollars and thought was cool and wanted to share. Knucklehead was like, "Oh, must be some type of like challenge to me or something." It's ridiculous. Yo, and by the way, those watching, get those likes up, right? Get those likes up. It helps the video in the algorithm. Yo, how's it going, Alfred? How's it going, my friend Alfred? Yeah, Alfred's been asking, where the streams were, and again, I apologize that it's, took so long for me to, get around to doing the stream. A lot of shit going on over here. But I do what I can. I do what I can with my circumstances. That's the way that I look at things, man. Just adapt to whatever's going on. Again, I had to live in a Rio Brazil style slum, hot bunking a bed with 4 people. If you don't know what a hot bunking is, like they do this in the military for like submarines. Like say a soldier will be doing his daily duties, and then someone else will sleep in his bunk, then they'll switch, and then they'll do that over their deployment, right? So basically, I had to use one bed for 4 different people, right? 2 people in a bed, then someone gets the couch, someone gets the floor, and switch it out every couple days. That's basically what the hell I was doing. So I've been down and out. I mean, shit, I'm in my decline as far as not about teaching, not about spiritually, but it's about my life in this world, right? My daily life in this world. Just like most people my age, we're in our decline right now, right? Our good days was like 2015, 2016. But if you ask any Gen Z dude or even girl out there, when was the happiest time of your life, right? What are you, if you could go back to any part of life, like what would you choose? Everybody by like 80% is like, oh yeah, 2015, 2016, amazing. You know what I'm saying? So that's just the way that most people out here are viewing it. And again, you can't blame them. Again, statistically in every way possible, things were better back then. And again, it doesn't mean that there wasn't evil going on. There was. Doesn't mean that there wasn't poverty going on. There absolutely was. It's just things are a lot worse now. And that's really undeniable to deny. Anybody that denies that, you're just, out of touch with what's really going on. Troy Taylor said, once saved, always saved, was never taught in the first 1600 years of Christian history. This doctrine was birthed in the 1600s. So ETT KO'd Bruce with a first round knockout. Yeah, that's a good point. I did knock him out. Troy ain't the sharpest knife in the drawer or brightest bulb in the box himself. Inside joke. Um, it's like Troy, like how the hell do you know in the year 2026? How do you know was taught 2,000 years ago in like some Christian mosque or something, or a synagogue or whatever word you want to put on it, temple? Like seriously, man, you're just taking a shot in the dark, or just reading some book somewhere. And by the way, the same books, like say some of these history books that you read out of, you know shit, they all start off with, all the beginning, it was an explosion, Big Bang, billions of years went by, we evolved, and, 3,000, 300,000 years we've existed, city came, city went, whatever, and then we came to our modern existence, without any God or any intelligent beings involved with any of it at all. Say, okay, that's obviously dumb. But again, all these people just believe it, right? They saw it in the textbooks, just all believe it, and think they're smart because they can regurgitate what a textbook told them. That is a good question, Alfred. Um, Alfred asked ETT, what's the law or the rule in the Bible about gambling? Well, what I would tell you is that, as far as I'm aware, there's not a book, chapter, and verse that states that gambling is a sin. Though I will tell you that if you do gamble, that certainly needs to be done in moderation. Like, say, for instance, like even I'll purchase, like, maybe every couple months I'll buy a couple dollars worth of lottery tickets, like maybe 20 bucks on lottery tickets every couple, like 3 months or whatever, right? Just for a little fun. I would say that's totally fine if you're just betting, $10 here, $20 this, other month here, and just a couple of dollars throughout the year just for a little fun. That's not sin. But if you're literally like losing your life savings and draining bank accounts, stealing money from relatives to keep up a gambling addiction, yeah, that's bad. You gotta get off of that. So again, things need to be done in moderation. Just like I'll give you a great example that goes along with gambling. A little bit here and there is not bad and can be fun, but if you do too much, it could ruin your life. Right? If you do too much, it can get way out of hand. So you need to be smart and moderate it, right? And do it in moderation. Same thing with drinking alcohol. Drinking alcohol is not a sin. Matter of fact, when I get off of this live stream, I'm going to chug down two Angry Orchards when I get out of here, and probably chase it down with a Fireball or something, or some type of Mexican imported beer. But anyway, um, drinking alcohol is not a sin, but it needs to be done in moderation, because if you do too much and are irresponsible with it, it can mess you up. So alcohol is not a sin, but you need to be smart and do it in moderation. So same thing with gambling. If you do a little bit here and there just for a little fun once in a while, it's, not a problem. It's not a sin. But if you let it, get a hold of you, ruin your life and, steal money from other people to, fund your addiction, then yes, then that would be a sin. So I would say it just depends upon what you mean by gambling. Somebody that's ruining their lives and stealing from people to keep up with the addiction, yes, that is a sin, something we should avoid. But if you're talking about someone who spends, a couple dollars throughout the year on lottery cards, no, that's not sin. So that's my answer for your question. Yeah, I hear you, Alfred. As I said, I accept to the circumstances and conditions that I'm put into. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, God's in control of all things, right? God, as it says, right? God makes rich and he makes poor, right? God, puts one down and lifts up the other. It's all in God's hands as to what he does, man. So that's just what it is. Or that's just what it is, man. Like, I'll give you an example. Like, recently, there was a big fire, not very far from me, right? A big fire. And I was watching an interview they did with somebody, and the guy's like, "Yeah, I lost everything, right? I lost everything. Gonna be, on the streets tonight." It's like, damn, hey, that could be anybody, man, right? We're all at the will of God, right? We're all at God's will, Hey, what is that? Was it Matthew 10:28? It says, "Don't fear man, the one that can destroy the body but not the soul, but fear him, the one that can destroy both the body and the soul." Right, and that's what God can do. So yeah, so hey, everybody's circumstance and position, God's in control of all of it, man. But some of us are put in these circumstances so we have a better end. We might be built up at the end. Like, look at Job, for example. He had it all. Then Satan made a bet with God that he would get Job to, turn away from God if he tempted him. God said, okay, go try it. Let's see what happens. And Job, he remained wise and understood that these things happen for reasons. And at the end, he ended up getting it all back at the end. Right. Now, Johnny, as I said, drinking alcohol itself is not a sin, but if you're drinking too much, then it can be a sin. Like, let me give you an example. You would agree with me that Christ didn't sin, right? Well, the Bible says that Christ spent time in the winepress. If you read Isaiah, the 63rd chapter. I'll give you another example. Christ and the apostles drank wine at the Last Supper, right? You can read about that in all of the Gospels. So obviously, Christ did not commit sin by drinking alcohol, by drinking wine. So again, some people can be modest with drinking alcohol, such as I myself, right? Hey, look, 2 or 3 glasses, I'm good. They'll need to drink, entire, 12 pack. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, if you're getting, totally wasted and drunk, making a damn fool of yourself, yeah, then that is sin. You're not supposed to be doing that. But if you're having, 2 glasses of wine or beer with your dinner, that's not a sin. Because even Christ did that. So again, unless we're going to say that Christ committed sin, that we can't say that alcohol is totally sin. We clearly can't say that. In fact, the scriptures even say Christ told the apostles that he's not going to drink again of the fruit of the vine until he drinks it new with them in his Father's kingdom. I'll just throw that out there. Yeah, as I said, man, we can arrange a conversation, and as I said earlier, I never turn you down from having a conversation about these subjects, like you tried to paint it out, to be. You know, I always host open panels over here that people are allowed to join and interact in conversation. So hey, if you ever see me doing an open panel, feel free to join. And we can always like say if you see me doing a live stream and ask me to join, then perhaps I could put a link down there for you to join. All you got to do is ask, and if I'm available, I can do that. It's not a problem. Let's see, you said complete clown. Well, I think you and Jill are basically the only clowns here. He said, hopefully you can schedule another live stream Monday or at a decent time. Yeah, I can figure that out. I said you have no clue what you're talking about. Yeah, that's that you don't know what's going on, man. Yeah, Alfred, you ask gambling on the Sabbath. I'd say you should avoid gambling on the Sabbath because again, we're really on the Sabbath. We're just supposed to be staying at home. We're not supposed to be going out traveling. So yeah, the gamble, you basically have to like go somewhere else, go somewhere and buy some tickets or go to a casino. So yeah, we shouldn't be doing that on the Sabbath. No. You're supposed to be at home, with your wife and kids. You can watch stuff on TV is fine, but we should be staying at home. We shouldn't be, going around, just living like any other day. Sabbath's supposed to be, a set apart thing. Yeah. Yeah, Johnny, you're right. You said it hurt Jay's feelings. I mean, hey, look, I think I've been, and you guys can tell me, right? You as the audience can tell me if I'm being harsh or if I'm being respectful and friendly. Because I think personally, I'm being very respectful and friendly. As I said, Jay's been a friend of mine for like 7 years. Um, but that doesn't mean that I'm not going to correct him on his ignorance. I am going to. Just like I had to do with Judah when we had a disagreement. Like, say, for instance, there was like 1 or 2 things me and Judah disagree with. I was like, okay, man, come up on stage, let's have a discussion, like say the heliocentric and geocentric Earth. And we talked about it. We had a really good conversation and, we were able to come to some type of understanding. And so what? We're not going to sit there, and cry like little babies, just because, we might see a topic differently. So I don't know what Jay's getting all like, butthurt about, for lack of better terms. I don't get what he's getting so upset about. Now, maybe it's because I'm throwing a lot of facts out here that he's just unaware about, such as, the historical footage you brought out about Anne Frank, and all these other historical facts. That could be the case. I don't know. But yeah, like I honestly don't understand it. I don't know why he won't answer this question. I don't get why someone who claims to know Christ and teach Christ has such a obsession with Adolf and Germany and what that regime did during the Second World War. Like, I don't get all of the what's the word I'm looking for? I don't get why he's so into it. I just really don't. Like he wasn't like this literally like 6 months ago. This is literally like a brand new thing that he just made up within the last like 2 months. Seriously. Again, I've known this dude for like 7 years. In fact, I got a buddy of mine, Ridge, who's known this guy even longer than me. He wasn't talking about this stuff back then. This is all like brand new. And again, I'll say it again. If he wants to believe it, he's welcome to believe that. But don't get mad at me for correcting you on what you're saying. You cannot represent God or Christ, but then on the other hand, defend a man who's responsible for the death of millions. You can't do that. That is living a lie. You can't be a teacher of righteousness and stand up for evil at the same time. I'm sorry, but you can't do that. And if that hurts your feelings, well, sorry, man, but that's just the truth. You ever heard the statement that goes that the truth hurts? You know that when Christ was walking the earth, people put frets out on his life, right? There are literally multiple examples in the Gospels where Christ was preaching, and teaching, and people were picking up stones to stone him for the things he was saying. So he had to quickly, dodge and weave through the crowds to get out of there. Go back and read your Bible. What Christ teaches is controversial. It's not, to bring everyone together, all hugs and kisses and rainbows. That's obviously not true. He said, this is the Most High separating the weak from the strong. You're right about that. I'm the strong and you're the weak. Uh, Again, no disrespect, my friend, but between us, I'm the strong and you're the weak. And I think everybody on this comment thread would agree with me on that, at least on this subject. Right? My argument on the subject is clearly strong, and your argument is weak. And again, you can believe what you want, man, but you know, I just find it bizarre how this is like weird times focused around. You know what I'm saying? I just don't get that. And again, you can believe what you want, man. Right? I'm not gonna fight you on it. I'm not gonna say, oh, well, I hate this guy and he's not my friend. No, I didn't say that. I consider Jay to be a friend I've known for many years. Even though we just disagree about this or that, doesn't mean I don't like the guy. But I will say that he can't really be a teacher of truth, though. He can't be a teacher of God or Christ and hold this perspective. Like, sorry, you just can't be. Like, say for instance, Tazariak gets along with what's this other dude? I believe it's Sarnetta. Right, Sarnetta. He calls him Sarnigga. But anyway, these guys get along as friends, but the one knucklehead is into like Egyptology and Kemet or whatever, and Tazariak, into Bible and Israelite history. So these guys are friends, but they get into big fights and arguments about these historical documents and events. Like it was funny. I was watching a live stream that these two dudes were doing together as they were driving to New York for a debate between Tazariak and I believe it was Inspiring Philosophy. They were going to have a debate at like Center Square Park, which actually was a really good debate. Tazariak, whooped this dude's booty in that debate. I mean, that was insane. Y'all can look that up. Tazariak versus Inspiring Philosophy. Check that debate out. Um, But yeah, it was funny. These dudes were driving down together. These dudes, old live streamer, getting into, a heated debate and argument. But guess what, though? They were still buddies. They still respected each other, even though in the moment they were, bickering back and forth about, the information that they both disagreed on. But at the end of the day, those dudes are buddies and friends, even though their worldviews and life views are totally different. All right, let me see here. Alfred said, "Hey, if we die saints on this life, is our next life better, or is it random, or is there a reverse, other than the ring verse in the Second Ezra's? I believe you're referring to Second Ezra's chapter. Was that Second Ezra's chapter 5 and verse 42? I believe it says, "I'll liken my judgment unto a ring, as there's no slackness of the last, there's no swiftness of the first." So yeah, to answer your question, if you were living righteously in your last life, God can give you rewards in this modern life. But guess what? Some righteous men that might not get, many great rewards. They might not have much wealth, might not have, a woman, might have some hardships in life. And some of those hardships you go through could be a judgment that God's given you for something you did in your past life, right? Just because God's judging someone doesn't mean it always has to be like a terrible tragedy or death or something. God can judge you in small ways for things that you've done. Like say some people in the world might die young, or a stray bullet might get them, kid might have cancer at 9 years old. Well, hell, that he could have in his past life been, a mass murderer or something. He could have been, a very evil person in his past life. So God's judging him in this now life today with cancer. That could be true. Like, so I'll give you an example. Like in John the 9th chapter, the apostles asked Christ, this man over here, was he born blind because of his own sins, or was it because of his parents' sins? And Christ answered and said, well, in this particular instance, it's so I could perform a miracle through him and people could see and believe. But guess what, though? It's a really interesting point because it shows the apostles had a concept that people could be born with a disfigurement or disability because of something they did. They asked, was he born this way because of his own sins or because of his parents' sins? So it shows that they had an idea or concept that you could be born this way because of something you did. A verse I'll throw out for you, which just ties into predestination too. But the point is that when we're born, God already lays out our life before us, and He can judge us for things in the past. If you read, was that Jeremiah 1:5? God told Jeremiah that I already knew you before you were formed in the belly, and I preordained you to be a prophet to the nations. So before Jeremiah was even conceived in his mother, God already knew him and preordained him to be a prophet to the nations. I'll throw another verse out there. Let me see if I can pull up here. Bear with me for a second. Yeah, this is the book of Ephesians, chapter 1, and verse 4. It says, according as he have chosen us in him from the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love, having predestinated us unto the adoption of children by Christ to himself, according to the good pleasure of his will. Right, but the point is, let's even go back to verse 4. It says, according as he have chosen us in him before the foundation of the world. Then in verse 5 it says, having predestinated us unto the adoption of children by Christ. But the point is, it says he chosen us and predestinated us. Right, so hell, knocking out two birds with one stone, proving predestination in the Bible with those couple verses, and also showing a few verses about how people can be born with disfigurements or disabilities. A good verse to throw on here, I believe that's Job chapter 4, verse 7, if I'm not mistaken. It says, I remember I pray thee, whoever perish being innocent. For every person who passes away, it happens for a reason, whether it's a small child, whether it's, a 60-year-old, whether some knucklehead jaywalks and gets ran over, on the highway or something, or on um, a gas station parking lot or whatever. It all happens for a reason. It's all preordained by God, right? It's all laid out. Yeah, Job chapter 4, verse 7, it says, remember, I pray thee, whoever perished being innocent, or where were the righteous cut off? Right, whoever perished being innocent. The Bible says, another verse I'll throw on there. Hey, look, ETT is spitting flames. You may as well call me a flame flinger, because I'm shooting shots in all directions here. I'm, dunking on free grace, dunking on Jay and his German nonsense. I'm dunking on the once saved, always saved, dunking on the Christians that deny reincarnation. I'm shooting shots in all directions here. That's what I'm doing. But anyway, let's see what's going on in the comments here. So I'm put up Exodus chapter 20 and verse 5. I'll check that out. If I had to assume, perhaps it's doing something with the law, because that's the chapter that God gave Moses the law in. So let me check out the verse. Yeah, good verse. I'll read it. I got it here. It says, Exodus chapter 20, verse 5, thou shalt not bow down thyself to them, nor serve them. For I, the Lord thy God, am a jealous God, visiting the iniquity of the fathers unto the children, unto the third or fourth generation of them that hate me. Yeah, good verse, good verse. Yeah, as I said, man, and what's the other brother in the chat? Johnny. Johnny has a really good point, of calling out Jay as just being overly emotional. Hey, look, I'm sitting up here all chill and relaxed. I'm not raising my voice. I'm not, barely name calling, right? Not saying, oh, I hate this dude. Oh, we're not friends anymore. Like, I'm not saying that stuff. I'm sitting here, all chill, relaxed. And Jay's on here, typing a mile a minute about all these, terrible and evil things. Like, how can you guys say this stuff to me? Like, well, what am I saying though exactly? Like, what hurtful and mean things am I saying exactly, just by calling you out as being ignorant, saying you believe in Jesus but also believe and follow a person responsible for millions of casualties? But like what am I? Can somebody correct me on that? Can somebody watching this live stream correct me as to what I'm missing here? Like how am I? Well, what am I saying exactly that's like so weird and strange? Like, I just honestly don't get that. Like, can someone explain that to me? What point am I not getting? Like, what am I saying that's like so bizarre and way out there and strange? So yeah, man. I mean, but between the two of us, you're clearly the one acting emotional and unrealistic. Like, I mean, hey, the audience has spoken. And again, as I said, I would consider Jay to be a friend. And as to his view, I can't affect that. But, you know, just calling someone out for believing something not true doesn't mean that you don't have to be a friend anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't get that. Like, this is preschool right here. Like, preschoolers might be friends for, a couple months. Then they'll get into an argument about some petty little topic. And now, oh, I don't like them anymore. Or I don't want to see them anymore. It's like, okay, does not this feel like what Jay is doing here? Oh, well, I don't want to see all of you anymore. I mean, hey, man, you're a grown guy. You can, make your own decisions as to who you want, talk to on stream and whatnot. That's your choice, man. I can't hold you to that. Just like you can't hold me to anything, right? Every guy got, his own stuff going on. You know what I'm saying? Um, but yeah, there's no hate, there's no hard feelings. So again, if after the stream, if anybody has hate or hard feelings towards somebody, that's not me. Because I said for the record and on the record here that I don't hate Jay. I don't consider him to be an enemy. I consider Jay to be a friend. But with that being said, that doesn't mean I'm going to sit here and just believe whatever he says. He's obviously saying a lie, and I'm going to criticize him for believing a lie. Now, he can choose to do a response video to me. He can choose to join me live another night and have a respectful discussion, which I would gladly do. As we said earlier in the stream, I gladly have a discussion about why we see differently. I'm not opposed to doing that, and I never said I was. This is certainly not something we're going to see eye to eye on, obviously. I think any rational person could see that, but at the end of the day, as I said, people can believe whatever they want to believe. I mean, there's people out here walking around believing that the God of the Old Testament is the devil. There's people out here believing that we're living in the kingdom of heaven today. There's people out here who believe that there's no God that exists whatsoever. There's people out here who believe all types of stupid shit. And hey, if you want to believe that stuff, then you're welcome to go believe that stuff. I can't sit there and stop you from believing that. But don't get mad at me for trying to knock some sense into you. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't get mad at me for going to all these, talking points as to why your position on whatever the topic is incorrect. Jay said, I never said you said. I think he might have typed wrong there. But anyway, he said, you do actually, coming to think of it, I've watched you multiple streams and you talk a lot of passive aggressive smack up there on James stream, etc. But what I said on James live stream, if anyone don't know who that is, that's like babble off. What I said on Jamie's stream was, as far as I know, my only statement about Jay is, yeah, well, he's going off on some stuff, right? Yeah, Jay, some stuff he's saying is clearly, not true. But again, man, you're proving my statement, though, by what you're saying here. You're getting all, upset and uptight just about me saying that, oh, well, this guy is wrong about something he says here or there. This is preschool behavior, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, say, let me give you an example. Like, when I hear Jamie talk about me on a stream he's doing with, say, like Dimples or God's integrity pathways, and I hear them mention me and say, oh, yeah, well, ETT believes some strange stuff or, some weird things. It's like, yeah, okay. I mean, hey, if they view it that way, then, that's fine. I'm not going to sit there and say, oh, well, they made fun of me or, they said something that I didn't like. So now I don't like them. It's like, that's not how a man's supposed to think. That's just how a child thinks. You know what I'm saying? And especially as righteous men, right? As righteous men, we're not supposed to move this way. Get all touchy and upset over little petty things. That's not how we're supposed to be. And that goes for all of us out here, all of us. We're not supposed to be like that. And the truth is, most people out here need to be doing better, right? Need to, take account for actions, need to better themselves, need to, stop acting all petty and childish. And you see it all over YouTube. All over YouTube, there's people acting like this. Like, I'll give you an example. There was a live stream out there, I believe it's called the People's Freedom Podcast or something, or Podcast for the People, where everybody can just come and talk. You try to call in there for a discussion, everybody all yelling and screaming and, mom jokes every, 8 seconds. It's like, you're walking into a middle school cafeteria, is really what these live streams on YouTube usually turn out to be, and I find that really just sad and pathetic to me. You know what I'm saying? Like, we all need to do better. Well, shit, to be fair, I mean, I don't think I'm doing pretty bad myself. You know what I'm saying? I think I'm doing a very good job of what I do, but sure, perhaps there's some times where, maybe I could even done something better. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not going to sit there and deny that. I'm sure it's happened, time and time, time here, time there. The truth is, it happens to all of us. But, the fact is that that's not an excuse, right? There is no excuse to, to act these ways, right? Like, even these Hebrew Israelites out here, a lot of them act ignorant and dumb, just like a lot of Christians. There shouldn't be, like a screaming contest, when you join these live panels to have conversations. Everyone's yelling and screaming over one another. We all need to do better, man, right? The Christians, the Hebrew Israelites, the atheist, the agnostic podcast, everybody needs to have more respect. You know what I'm saying? I just find it a damn shame how a lot of people are on here acting. People are not even able to have a one-on-one conversation a lot of times without, over talking, over talking the other person, not letting them finish their sentence, listening to what's being said. And it's really bad. It is really bad. And it just needs to be better. People need to think more clearly and act more mature instead of, acting like a bunch of little kids. Okay, let me see real quick. Damn, I'm already at 2.5 hours. Man, time went quick. As I said, if anybody's watching has a question and comment, please do ask that in the live chat and I will address it. Hey, this is your time. Right, this is your time here. I'm just checking something in the back chat here. Just give me a second. Y'all seen that knucklehead, Mr. Jill? He disappeared real quick. Once I start talking about his SNAP benefits and SSI and Cheeto money. Yeah. And once I start dissing on his savior Trump, he dodged real quick out of here. And as I said, man, we don't really have time in today's day and age to be debating all of these, dumb topics on here. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, I don't mind having a conversation with somebody about the Trinity, like Mr. Jill, for an example. But the problem I do have is having 25 debates about the same topic with the same person. You know what I'm saying? Like, Joe, I don't mind having 2 or 3 discussions about the Trinity with you. I don't mind having that, and we've done that. But, it comes a little bit repetitive when you try to come over here like for the 38th time in a row to try to talk about the Trinity. Like, shit, if you have another topic of contention, we can address and talk about that. That's fine. But, as far as the Trinity, talking about it, 50 damn times in a row or, 28 times in a row, it comes a point where you just gotta just accept the fact, I'm not going to convince you to see it my way. I'm not going to convince you to see it my way. You're not going to convince me to see it your way. So a real man would just say, okay, we'll all respect the difference and, we'll talk about something else. You'd think that most people would be able to do that. It's the same thing with Jay here about this, Adolf in Germany. I mean, hey, look, if you want to believe that, man, you're welcome to go believe that, but you're not going to convince me of such nonsense. You know what I'm saying? I'm well studious of what I teach and believe over here. Do a lot of research into what I talk about before I speak of them. And I understand maybe you saw a couple, cherry-picked videos on the internet, trying to say something different. Like, I can understand that, but that doesn't always make that true. Like, there's a lot of theories on the internet that are just not true. Right? Some of them might be very well represented in like a documentary form video, but that doesn't make it true. Like, I'll give you an example. Like David Weiss or Eric Dubay. While I do respect them and think that they are decent researchers, they certainly have some errors with what they believe and teach. I'll give you an example. They have done like good, well put together documentaries where they, stitch together some cherry picked information to try to pretend that like nuclear weapons don't exist. It's like all a hoax because they, cherry pick some information to make it look that way, or that, dinosaurs never walked the earth, cherry pick some information and make it look that way and present it nice and simple to understand for a gullible person. And everybody goes around and believes it, right? There's knuckleheads out here convinced now that the government doesn't have nuclear weapons because they watched a couple of videos of some knuckleheads on YouTube, that they put together, a 2-hour documentary about, Tartaria or, the dino hoax or, the nuke hoax. And everyone just believes it because, well, look, all this information. It's like, okay, but a lot of the information they put into these videos is lopsided, meaning what? They'll disregard other information that refutes their claims and just hold to a handful of information they cherry picked that confirms their findings and views of it. Again, it just varies upon what the video and topic is. Sometimes there are good, well presented presentations, but that doesn't make them true. Like, I'll give you an example. I've seen very well thought out presentations for free grace. That does not make it true just because they're able to put together a presentation that's, has a lot of, good slides or, funny jokes included to keep people entertained, or, 50 cherry pick verses to quote unquote prove free grace or once saved, always saved. That doesn't make that true, even though it's well put together and seems to be, well thought out, right? A lot of the stuff's just cherry picked, and that's just what it is. Alfred said, this is a good question. Alfred said, what's the likelihood Yahushai comes back this week? I want to get out of here. Hell, don't we all want to get out of here, man? Right? Don't we all want to get out of this place? Now, unfortunately, to answer that question, there's not a chance that Christ could come back this week because the Bible teaches that Christ won't come back until after certain things take place. Right? Like, say, for example, like if you read Matthew 24, where it talks about like the, signs that would happen upon the earth, right? Distress of people, wars, rumors of wars, fishes of the sea being taken away, earthquakes around the world. Well, all of those things are happening frequently and increasing in scale. There's certain prophecies that have to be fulfilled before Christ returns. Like, one of the most important would be the MOTB, Revelation 13:16. Christ will not return until after that takes place. And also the 7 vials that you read about in Revelation, the 16th chapter. Right? As far as I understand, the 6 of them have to sound, and then we get delivered when the 7th happens. So, according to the scriptures, I'll quote you one here. You can look up Matthew 24, verse 29. It says, immediately after the tribulation of those days, the Son of Man's going to be revealed. Then he'll send his angels to gather together his chosen from around the world. So did you notice that it said immediately after the tribulation of those days? Well, we're not through the tribulation, but we're not through the tribulation. We could be like in the beginning stages of tribulation, but we certainly are not in like the midst, like the middle of it or whatever, or nearing the end. We're certainly not there. I mean, hey, the MOTB is not pushed upon everybody right now. World War III is not in full swing yet. Well, it is certainly around the corner. It could pop off like any month now, but it's certainly not to its full extent. So that we're in what the Bible would call the beginning of sorrows, right? Like the years where these things are starting to take place. And we've been in it for a while. It seems like, since like the 2000s, right? It seems like since the 2000s, everything's in like decline, right? And as we just continue to, keep going year by year by year, it all just continues to get worse. Like, say, for instance, in 2016, yeah, there were signs going on about the end of days, earthquakes around the world, mass animal die-offs, uproars of the people around the world. Yeah, there were certainly signs happening back then because we were in those times. But we're still in the beginning of it, where we're not in like the middle of the tribulation or nearing the end, where we're in the beginning. We're at least nearing the beginning. So, unfortunately, Christ isn't coming back. Not this week, not next month. You know, while it is true nobody knows the day or the hour, the Bible clearly states that he's not coming back until after certain things happen upon the earth. That's just a fact. Like, there's guys out there, I even debated some of these dudes, like that knucklehead, um, shit, what is that guy's channel called? New Light Creation or something like that, New Light Studios. Bear with me for a second. Let me check this out. Yeah, this dude, New Light Studios, which this is one of those guys who believed in this knucklehead, like Joshua, right, bro, brother Joshua. That convinced everybody that God showed him a vision that the rapture would happen on September 23rd. And then, of course, it didn't happen. Then these guys all just made excuses. Oh, he actually meant, another week, next month, then the month after that. And knuckleheads are still making excuses for this false prophet, as they call brother Joshua. But my point is, this guy, New Light Studios, I believe his name is like Mike or Mark or something like that. Dude's literally like every day, right? Every day, um, watching for the rapture, doing like live streams every other day, a rapture watch, right? Like let's all just sit there, talk about Jesus in the Bible, and hope the rapture happens during why I'm doing the live stream. Like that's literally what this knucklehead is on there doing. Literally, dude got what, like 50 videos, 100 videos of him sitting there for like 8 hours, 12 hours, just interacting with the chat, waiting for Jesus to show up. And I bring the knucklehead on to debate the topic, and this dude's fighting hard to defend this lie that he believes in, this convenient lie. Thinks he figured out some type of like deep mystery. Then I ask him, well, how long have you believed this, right? Like how long have you believed in this like 23rd of September prophecy? Guy's like, oh, well, I just heard about this like this year, man. It's just like a whole new thing that I'm like getting into. It's like, okay, well, did anybody tell you that people have been talking about this exact day and rapture on this exact day for literally 10 or 15 years now? You know what I'm saying? Like, I remember hearing this shit on YouTube like 12 years ago, 10, 12 years ago, man. And videos even go beyond that of people talking about this dumb shit. You know what I'm saying? Knucklehead think he figured it all out because Joshua said it's on the 23rd. It's like, okay, but years before, literally over a decade before this Joshua knucklehead was on the scene telling people about the 23rd, people believed that Christ was coming back on September 23rd. It's just this year people believe this knucklehead for whatever dumb reason. Oh man, like I watch some of these TikTok compilations, these rapture watchers, And it was really bad, man. People on there like, oh, why, I gave away my car for like $10 because I don't need it anymore because I'm getting raptured tomorrow. Or I, gave all my food to the local pantry because I don't need it anymore. Literally, gave all their bank account funds away to charity because Jesus is coming back on the 23rd. And then, of course, that don't happen and everybody's, upset and, wants their car back, wants their money back. And, it's long gone now. All because these ignorant knuckleheads believe some dumbass, a false prophet on TikTok. Like think about that. How are people so dumb today that they literally are convinced to sell their car for $10 because some knucklehead on TikTok just said that he had a dream that God showed him the rapture would happen on this exact day. Like this is really where we're at today. Like people, let this sink in real quick. So people are so dumb today, they're willing to, empty their bank accounts to charity because Jesus is coming back, according to TikTok. Right? People are so dumb to do that. And then on the other hand, you got people who want to debate about if Adolf was actually like a hero. Meanwhile, World War III is about to pop off at any moment. You know what I'm saying? Like this is dumb. That's all I can say. The world just getting dumber as the days go by, man. You know what I'm saying? Like we really, seriously, like think about this. We literally are in the year 2026, where AI is so good they could literally fake you and me on video and make it look identical to us in real life. They could fake our voice, fake everything. You know, we got all this shit going on in the world to worry about, and knuckleheads want to sit there and debate about if Adolf is actually like a hero and, a great guy or something. And as I said, if you want to believe that, you're welcome to go believe that. But it's really hard to believe that that's what people have devolved to in the year 2026. You know what I'm saying? That like this, what sense does this make? So with World War III getting started, America got beef with countries, well, really all around the world, but now they're going against some in like, South America, like how they just invaded Venezuela and captured this dude, their dictator over it within the last month or so. But again, all this shit's going on. Right? Nobody can afford to eat. Nobody can afford anything in life. But, people want to debate about, well, is Jesus coming back, on September 23rd? Or, was Adolf a great righteous man? You know what I'm saying? Like, I just honestly don't get it, man. I just honestly don't get it. Then these other knuckleheads like Free Graces. You know what I find funny? Like this knucklehead Jack Smack 77. Literally every video this guy uploads by 99% is just about, whatever a new Christian like disagrees with free grace, right? Whatever Christian now disagrees with free grace and, speaks against it. He's like doing a video, devil horns over him. Hold on a second. I'm just sitting here watching these, jackals, these knuckleheads walking down the street, dumbasses, running on a slippery road, fell on his ass. Dude's dude's running, right, trying to get where he's going. Dude slips on ice. Shit, you can't feel bad for people like that, man, right? Just acting dumb. Like knucklehead, you see there's, ice, snow, and sleet all over the road, and your ass is running through that. Can't feel bad for you when you fall. You know what I'm saying? Alfred, excuse me, asked, what's a good flat earth channel? Well, what I'll tell you on that is you got to take all these channels with a grain of salt because some things they tell you are true, some things are not true. So on the flat earth topic, I would recommend David Weiss or Eric Dubay or Mark Sargent. But with that being said, there are some things they teach which are not true. And that's just what it is. So don't believe them when they tell you that nuclear weapons are fake. Don't believe Tartaria. Don't believe the dinosaur hoax. Don't believe a lot of the things they tell you. But I will give them credit. As far as the flat earth argument and debates they do is actually pretty decent, right? Pretty decent information on that topic. But then you should really take them with a grain of salt. Like, I'll give an example. Eric does a lot of good information and research on some topics, but then he clearly goes off and doesn't know what he's talking about. Like, I'll give an example. Like, he don't believe Christ ever existed, for an example, and believes the Bible's like some type of like trick by the elite to keep us all, gullible and ignorant and in line with whatever they say. You know what I'm saying? So that's obviously not true. That's a lie. But it doesn't mean that everything he says is false. And that's just what it is. So yeah, there's definitely, a handful of channels out there. Even RV Truth has some good stuff, but then, he clearly goes off the deep end. Oh, everything ain't real, man. Every event in the world is just all fake and staged. Like, that's obviously just such a dumb thing to believe, right? They think, oh, well, this, gas station got robbed. But I saw behind a news reporter recording the story, the gas pump said 33 on it. Oh, so see, this is like just a scare tactic. Or Sovereign Soul, Unchained Mind. He's like, hey, look, man, um, September 11th, was no planes were used. It's like, okay, well, what do you think about like these videos I can show you, like literally the 2,000, 3,000 videos on the internet of regular civilians who recorded the planes come in. Some even recorded the first ones, but most got the second one. Right? Some people got the first plane, but most people got the second one because everybody was, drawn towards the sky after the first one hit, right? And then this knucklehead's like, hey, look, all of this is just fake and all CGI. I showed him a video. I showed him like a video. Some guy was like at the ferries, by the Hudson. And he shown the second plane come in and connect with the tower, right? And everybody's, screaming, can't believe what's going on. And all this knucklehead could say is, oh, well, they seem like a bunch of crisis actors to me. Like, I mean, it's getting really dangerous out here, man, with how dumb some people are. You could convince people everything is not real and fake. It's just really strange to me. Like knucklehead, like, what do you mean that this video isn't real? Like, what about this is not real exactly? I mean, you can see this is from the early 2000s. Um, you can see this is obviously not edited. You could even, put the footage through some type of filters, and they'll show you that, the planes are not like edited into the video. This is actually in real time. So, like, what about this are you skeptical about? Oh, well, look, it says it was uploaded to YouTube like 5 years ago. We'll see. It could have just been faked. It's like, well, knucklehead, there's a couple possibilities. Maybe somebody is re-uploading someone else's clip that was uploaded earlier in time. Perhaps somebody decided now to upload the footage that they had on an old device that they didn't feel comfortable with releasing until now. Perhaps maybe the video was put up years ago, but YouTube took it down for some claim of copyright or some type of other bullshit rule they have, right? So they might have took it down. Right? Somebody could be just re-uploading the video. So there's so many examples of what it could be as to why it's uploaded 5 years ago. But this knucklehead automatically thinks, oh, well, it must not be real at all. Like, what the hell are you talking about? So you believe a Sovereign Soul, Unchained Mind. You believe that all these people in New York who seen this event happen with their own eyes, they were all just like magically tricked with like some type of like CGI that they somehow like put in the sky to trick them. Like, I know about Project Bluebeam and all that, but I mean, let's be serious. Let's be serious for a second. The airplane is clearly real, clearly connected with the tower, and anyone that says otherwise is dumb. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that the government story is true. I believe the U.S. government is involved with that incident. I believe that. But that doesn't mean that no planes were used. I mean, if you believe that, you are just dumb. You're sorry, but I don't mean to hurt your feelings, but you are not living in real life if you believe, oh, well, well, it's all CGI. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, even if you look at where the plane hit the tower, it came out at it hit the tower at an angle. Now, hit at an angle, so you can see where it went in is like tilted, right? Because it hit it at an angle. Oh, but I don't know, man. It must have all just been like intentional to trick people. I mean, you know, we got to stop being this dumb. You know what I'm saying? Like, again, I believe in some conspiracies, but it's obvious that some are not true. Again, people that just believe in such dumb nonsense they hear on the internet, like without question and without hesitation. Like it's funny. Like I was doing a live stream discussion and somebody asked about hell, and I said that hell's like just a condition of suffering upon the earth. Sure, in the future there's going to be a lake of fire where people are punished. But that's not hell in the sense of like how Christian churches believe that when you die you like magically appear in hell and burn forever. Again, not all Christians believe that, but a large majority do. Um, that's a fairy tale. And then the person, thought that they were slick and, had like a good argument. And they mentioned, well, does he know about, like with Mel's hole, or not Mel's hole, the deepest hole in the world, the coolest super deep borehole made by the Soviet Union? I was speaking about that like 20 minutes earlier. And a guy thought he was slick and put up a comment and said, does he know about they lowered a microphone into the hole and heard like the screams of the damned? See, hell's real. And I responded and said, I'm very aware of this story, but that's called a creepy pasta. Right? That's either an urban legend or a creepy pasta. Right? It's not a true story, but it's just to like scare people, right? Like a shock value. So yeah, that's not a true story. They didn't lower no microphone into this hole and hear the screams from hell underneath. That is a lie. First of all, they couldn't get a microphone down there. You know why? Because the drilling equipment malfunctioned because it's too damn hot down there. That's why they couldn't keep going because the drills, would like warp and, disform. And the rocks at that layer are, like plastic, they say. So how the hell could they get a microphone down there? Like, don't you think that would like melt much more quicker than a damn, drill they put down there? Again, you guys are just believing this stupid shit because, again, it sounds cool. And don't get me wrong, that does sound cool, right? It sounds like a cool story, but it's just not true. Right? Sorry, that's not true, man. And hey, if you want to believe that, you go believe that. But that's a lie. Yo, how's it going, Luke? How you doing, my friend? Long time no see. Hope you're doing well. Okay, let's see. I'm just checking something over here. Bear with me a second. All right, I'm thinking this is probably the last chance everybody has to get your question and comment posted. If you want a answer to a question you have, this is most likely the last chance you'll have tonight to post it and get an answer. So I'll give you all a minute or two to do that. Johnny said, I remember when Jay did Perry's Bible study, then joined the cult. Well, you see, what I think happened is Jay was like just, messing around with Perry. You know why? Because he sends him like goodie bags, and, t-shirts and shit. Right? Like Perry literally has t-shirts he sent that say Bible study. And you know what? The Bible study, like the wording is literally in the I don't even know if I can say it on here, but some type of like X website, like popular one. and he took like the background logo and just put the word Bible in it or Bible study. It's like, wow, this is how this knucklehead's, making money, and like this is the merchandise he stands behind. Like what? Yeah, so Jay was likely just pulling his leg, to get free handouts, right? Get $100, get, a free Bible and T-shirt and sweet fish candy on the side or whatever. But then, you do have actually a point because on one hand, it seems like he's pulling his leg, but then on the other hand, he actually defends him on some streams. So, hell, I don't know. I don't know, man. That's all I can say. Okay, I'm just checking the comments, make sure I didn't miss anything here. All right, bear with me 1 second. Okay, that should be fine. But yeah, man, it's bizarre to me. It's so strange to me the things that people believe and say on here. You know what I'm saying? Like just actual knuckleheads out here that believe that hey, look, everything's like all peaches and cream. Everything's all good. Like that one novice that I debated. Believe his channel is called Speakeasy or something like that. Just knucklehead that looks like the CM Punk wrestler. Right, did a debate with that guy. Is like, oh, everything's all good, man. Like what are you guys saying that going around tell men that they shouldn't have children or get married today? It's like, well, knucklehead, if you listen to what I said, right? Hey, as Tazoriak says, listening is an art that not many people are able to do for some reason. But I said, based upon many different factors, like, financial, just the state of the world in general, um, it's better today, a more wise idea today for most guys to remain single and not get married and not have children. Now, certainly there are exceptions to that. If you have a wealthy guy that can afford a wife or two and have children, and raise them, then yeah, let him, get married, have his children, get a wife or two. Yeah, let him do that. But for the average dude out here, living on, $10 an hour, can barely afford gas, to get to work, eating pasta, 6 days of the week. That dude's not in a position to be getting married or having children. And if he does have children, what type of life is he able to give them? Some, broke, dirt poor life. Like, what is that? Well, what life to live is that? You know what I'm saying? It's like knuckleheads like that don't get it. Knucklehead's so brain dead, right? He's, fluoride, fried, right? His brain is so fluoride fried from all the sink water and, toothpaste that this dude is consuming over the years that knuckleheads literally sit there and fight you to say, oh, well, $9 an hour is a livable wage. You guys are just asking for way too much. You're trying to, live above your means. What the hell you talk about? Live above your means. How the hell can you live above your means on $9 or $10 an hour? It's like knucklehead. I go to the gas station across the road. Two damn Red Bulls are like 7.50. Hell you talking about live above your means on $9 or $10? I mean, what the hell are you talking about, numbskull? I mean, come on. Again, it's pathetic to me. People are so quick to defend their own slavery and servitude today, just really is strange to me. Everybody is so quick to defend the lies that they are told. Everybody's just so quick to defend the government and their corruption. Like, let me give you an example. Like, I was watching like a TikTok compilation about people angry about the economy, and they threw a clip in there of some ignorant knucklehead that was talking about he was talking about that, well, I don't know why people are, really complaining on here. I don't really know why people are up here complaining because, you can't get mad at the politicians that things are like, so bad and, find it hard to live because it's not really their fault, right? It's not their fault that the prices are increasing. I think that everybody is just, being unreasonable. It's like, what the hell is this knucklehead talking about? Everybody's being unreasonable. Hell are you talking about? Everybody being unreasonable. What the hell are you talking about? Oh, you can't get mad at the politicians. Like these knuckleheads up here, these politicians are making, more money in a year than you'll make, in the next 20 years, if not more. Oh, but it's not really their fault that, things are the way they are. It's not like they're, actually making these policies that, mess up, our daily life and, and whatnot. Yo, how you doing, LOP? Hope you're doing well, my friend. JG, or not JG, excuse me. Alfred. Well, this is not an open panel, right? So I wasn't planning on bringing people up here. In fact, I was planning on wrapping this stream up very soon. I was just, ranting a little bit longer and taking a question or comment if somebody has that. But I will say this: um, there is a open panel stream coming very soon. I don't know if it's going to be the next one or perhaps the one after that. I will decide that later. But very soon there will be an open panel stream where I'll invite anybody up for a question or comment, dialogue about whatever topic your choice, as I always like to do over here. LOP said, just woke up, Jay dropped me a link. Yeah, apparently he was looking for like some backup or something, man, because I was roasting him for his, ignorant view about, Adolf and, Germans were actually, the good guys. It's like, nah, that's dumb. Totally dumb. Alfred said, why don't you do a Bible study tomorrow, open panel? Well, I don't know if I can do tomorrow or not because, again, I got stuff going on here. So only under certain circumstances am I able to do a live stream. So I cannot put any promise on that. Perhaps I might be able to do a stream tomorrow. That's a possibility, but I can't say 100%. So, I could schedule something. If something comes up, I might have to reschedule. But I'll consider what I can do, and that's the best I can give people. Again, remember this: I do everything I do completely free, right? The education I'm giving out to people, the scriptural knowledge, also the entertainment of these discussions. I'm doing this all 100% free for all of you listeners. I've been doing this for 10 years on YouTube. I never made one penny off of anything that I've done, right? I'm doing this all completely free. So it's not always easy to do what I do. I do what I do because this is my it's a duty of mine as a teacher, as a man of God, to push this message and educate people who are curious and want to learn. That's what I have to do as a teacher, as a man of the Lord. So I do what I can with my circumstances, man. And that's the way I look at it. Man, it's it ain't always easy, but it is what it is. You gotta just adapt to what you got and and hope it works out. Yeah, yeah. As I said, LOP, you're just showing up late to the party, so you missed the entire free hour. You missed the entire 3 hours, right? So we already addressed that we would arrange a conversation where we can have it. right? As I say, you're showing up late to the party, so you didn't know about that. But just out of curiosity, though, LOP, so we haven't talked in probably like it's probably been like what 5 months, man, since me and you last had a conversation. So, do you agree with Jay about his views about like Adolf and all that, or like what where's your stance on that matter? Just inform me so I understand. Okay, I'm checking something here. All right, yeah, yeah. Phone battery's draining quick, so I can't be on here for too much longer here. Probably make it till about what 3 hours and 20 minutes. Seems pretty good. It seems about a fair amount of time. Okay, I'm checking something on my side here. Okay, it should be good. LP said, I think Jay takes it to the extreme, but he does make a few good points. Not everything I agree with, but some of it, yeah. All right, well, like, what would you say is one of those good points that you agree with, though, just out of curiosity? Because I think every point that he brought up about at least this subject is minute and dumb. Again, he's welcome to believe whatever he wants, but you know, and I want to point this out as well, right? As I said earlier, this is something the guy just came up with magically like a month or two ago. You know what I'm saying? So like I wouldn't be surprised if, 3 months in the future now he believes that the New Testament is like added on and fake. Like that honestly just wouldn't surprise me at this point. You know what I'm saying? Like, dude's definitely going off the deep end here. Yeah, excuse me for a moment. I'm checking something off to my side here. Okay, this should be good. This is a good verse. I'll throw this up here. This is the book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, and verse 13. And verse 14, it says, Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. Now, first of all, it speaks about the whole duty of man is to live in obedience with the commandments of God. And then it says that God's going to bring every act into judgment, whether it be good or whether it be evil. So, with that being said, how can we, on one hand, say, well, I'm speaking of Jay here, how could, on one hand, you claim you believe in Christ and uplift Christ and, law of God, but then on the other hand, you support somebody who is in complete violation of what the Bible says as far as the laws and guidelines and commandments. In fact, even went out of his way to eradicate God's people, which, of course, those of us in the know here, we know that the again, I gotta watch the words I use, but the so-called Israelites are not really the real Israelites of the Bible. That's obvious. But what he believed was the real ones, right? So his dedication was to eradicate God's people. But somehow he's like some type of like great noble guy. I mean, what logic is this? Like, I mean, seriously, LOP, like think about that for a second. Like, you're really gonna get behind somebody saying that? And to be fair, you said you don't agree with him on everything he said. Fair enough. But how could you believe with anything he said about this? Like, how can you believe anything that he says about this? Like, this is dumb. Shit, imagine what the mind of God would say if he was here. Imagine if Shrek was here. He probably find this funny. He call that dude an actor agent. Again, hey, wherever Shrek is these days, hopefully he's doing okay. But yeah, I mean, I guess, yeah, what you're saying is true, right? LP said he misses Shrek. Yeah, he's been going for a long time now, man. It's been over what, like 3 damn years? Over 3 damn years. So wherever he's at, hopefully he's doing okay now. That's what we hope for him. But hey, he brought it upon himself. We told the dude, chill out, don't get, too out of hand. And, you see what happened, right? You see where that led him. So just use that as an example, of how not to act, right? How not to be. And that's really the way that we can look at it. That's really the best approach to have to the whole situation. See real quick. If anybody's watching, like whether you're watching now or watching after the live stream, if you made it all the way to the end, go ahead and put hashtag the mind of God, right? TMOG, right? The mind of God, hashtag mind of God, to show him a little bit of respect, wherever he is now. And yeah, pretty much that's going to wrap up tonight's live stream. Appreciate everybody joining in. There's a lot of good questions and comments from the audience tonight. Now I will set up a open panel. I don't know if it's going to be tomorrow or Monday, but it will be soon. So do keep the bell icon on and get notified whenever that live stream goes live. But anyway, I hope everybody has a good night, and I'll see you all around.